and gentlemen, welcome episode 82 of the Bobby Couto Show. Kyle Cusick in the studio, Studio B. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Kyle, thank you so much for being here, bro. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, my pleasure, man. I was pumped to come back.
Yeah, you know what? Look, I just full disclosure, bro. We had some time before the show.
Yeah.
Sat down, broke some bread, drank some water, and just had a chance to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, bro. I struggle with it. You know, it's one of those moments that I want to just be like, talk to me.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I don't want to take away from the show, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It means so much
we
the
had
fact
good,
that you.
good talk, though.
Yeah, absolutely, right. Between Gary, thank you so much for being here, bro. I really appreciate you making the show and always stepping up, brother, and cutting up the show for us, dude. Thank you so much. And if you didn't have a chance to check it out, episode 81 of the Bobby Couto Show, Fighting Your Way to the Top, featured Kyle, John
Gruber, Chris Aiello, and Aaron Bernardo.
So can we talk just real quick? I just want to give an update to everybody about that it was the Fall River Fight Night.
Yep, you were there, right?
Yeah.
What'd
So
you think?
Yeah, I mean, dude, you know what? It's always amazing energy there, bro. And I think people, if you don't go, you don't know. But I think once you're there and you're like, wow, why am I not doing this every weekend?
Yeah.
Why isn't this happening all the time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a fun night out.
And dude, it's such great energy, bro. Everybody's in, everybody's having a great time. Families, children, everybody's there. So that was a big night for you, right? Like that's would you say that's a big night for you?
Yeah, I mean it's the the last time I'll step in there, as a professional.
Yeah,
that was
it's funny, man. I not to cut you off, but
no.
I actually, when I wrote the title of this one, I wrote episode 82, The Final Bell with Kyle. Like that was
awesome. Yeah,
it's kind of like how I kind of saw it, and I really appreciate you coming in, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that, bro. Like to have a career. And, we were talking about the studio earlier, and about, people just following your dreams and committing to that, no matter how crazy it sounds, and no matter how many people tell you to stop doing what you're doing, there's a voice inside you that says, just keep pushing forward. And
you just want to know if you can do it, and you don't want to look back and then say, what if, or I could have done that. I mean, we're only here once, right? Yeah. I mean, you just got to, you want to find out, some people are fine with wondering. And I think, some of us like you with the podcast, you just want to know, and there's only one way to know. It's to go out there and try it, right?
So, bro, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I think the audience, first of all, I appreciate this opportunity, bro, to tap into to your journey, bro. Seriously, I mean this.
I appreciate it.
But I want to talk about the beginning, bro. Like, let's talk about Kyle and the character, and how do you get here? How does Kyle get to this point where, here we are sitting and talking about your boxing career, a very successful one at that.
Yeah. I think I got what I got more than I deserved from it, and I think I probably had a honest record in the end. It's not going to go down in the annals of Fall River boxing history, but it was a long and windy road, I guess, to eventually get there. I'll be 40 at the end of the year, and I don't know. Where do you want me to start? Like with the boxing stuff, or just
where I'd like you to start is here's the question: what do you think your life would be like if you didn't find boxing? Like, how do you see that person without boxing in your life?
It might sound counterintuitive because it's a violent sport where you're taking TBIs or traumatic brain injuries potentially over and over again, and I grew up playing hockey too, which is another pretty, physical sport. But
Contact.
I think, my life would not be as fulfilling, and I definitely wouldn't have been as healthy of an individual, without it. We talked about it a little last time, but I played hockey since I could walk, like that was my thing as a kid with my dad, and I think his goal was for me to play, college hockey somewhere. And so it was 5-6 nights a week, 2 or 3 different teams.
So you were brought up with that discipline, right? The discipline came from
right? Yeah. It was just, I always think back to this story. I was talking about with my brother the other day where, I grew up and I was playing baseball and hockey, but hockey was my thing. Baseball was my brother's thing.
That was your cardio.
Yeah. That was something to do in the summer until I started playing summer hockey, and that took over year round, But I remember, we played at North Park, which I don't even think is is a league anymore. Going up the Seven Hills, that's a whole other thing. With, it's
that was a great place to play though, because you had the stadium style seating over there.
Yeah, well, I played up top, and then like the Pony League field
that was
downstairs.
a Pony in AAA.
Yeah. So like Little League, I remember, when like the lists came out for the All-Star team, and I remember my dad getting out of the car and me staying in it and talking to our coach and coming back, and he got in the car and he was like, "All right, yeah, you made the B All-Star team," and in my head I'm like. There's an A All-Star team. I'm not on that. And he just, and I think I don't know. I was young, I don't know if I welled up or I just obviously, clear disappointment. Yeah. And him turning around and being like, "What are you mad about? Like, that's what you earned. Like I asked you to come out and take swings, and you had other stuff to do, or, that's the team you should be on, and I think." Well, being raised like that,
dude, I like that, bro.
And in that moment,
right,
as a 10-year-old,
you don't want to hear that.
Right. Like, no, I just want you to tell me, it's BS, which is what a lot of kids get nowadays.
Right. Of course, everybody gets a trophy.
Kid.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah, right. So
we're around the corner on that, too, by the way. I think we're coming around the corner.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. But it doesn't breed any harder work,
where's the competitive, right?
Right. And he was right, at that point, I probably played baseball for another year, and then it was hockey.
Yeah.
But I think looking back at those moments now, like those are things I'm grateful for, because it was like, like you don't just get put on the team you want. You don't just get the accolades if the other 8 guys in the room worked harder.
Right. Right.
And I think that served me well,
So baseball ends. You decide you want to play hockey.
Yeah.
When you decide to play hockey, do you see yourself, hey, you know what? Like, this could be a career for me. Like, I could play hockey for the rest of my life.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think I was always kind of undersized. I mean, I'm 5'7" on my license, but I probably 5'6" 3/4. And that's, it's I think I had the skill only because it was fostered in me. Like I played, when we played in our league, our local travel team, I was one of the better defensemen on the team. Yeah. But then my dad had me in college development leagues where we'd play against kids from Catholic Memorial and Mount St. Charles and, the Providence Junior Bruins, and we'd go up there and get waxed. I was just the third line guy there, Yeah. But again, like, that's how I improved. You're going to level up if you're the tallest guy in the room. They say if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So, I think testing yourself against that better competition, learning, being exposed to one of our coaches was I think the goalie coach at Brown or Harvard. Like, just putting yourself in the mix with the best.
Right. Yeah, you're competing at that level. Right. That's the level.
And we grew up. When I was in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, going to Durfee games, and like that was my thing. Like, I want to play varsity at Durfee, and then again, like, it wasn't like.
Do you know Kevin Correa?
I know who he. Yeah, not personally.
One of my best friends.
Oh yeah,
he played hockey.
Yeah.
I
think he's a little bit older than me.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. But that's what that was the first. Like, make the varsity team. And then it was. Like,
so were you 16, 17?
Oh, no, I was...
15?
Well, 12, 13. I was a freshman.
So 14. So 14, 15. So 15, 14, 15?
Yeah, so as my freshman, I think, I was
It's a lot of weight, dude. It's a lot of weight because hockey's expensive. You're traveling all over the place.
Yeah.
So, like, you carry that burden, right? Like, don't let me down, kid.
No. And it was never, my father isn't someone who like tried to, you see those hockey parents or those sports parents that are trying to live vicariously through their kids. Yeah. He just wanted me to be the best I could be. Sure. It wasn't like I'd get in the car after and worry about, I mean, he'd give it to me when I needed to hear it, but it wasn't, but yeah, it was make the team, make the varsity team. Yeah. And, I was fortunate enough and then now all these teams are combined into one. Just like you said, hockey's so expensive. I don't know if the interest is still there. Right. But then, there was Durfee, there was Diamond, there was Somerset, there was Bishop Conley, which doesn't even exist anymore,
Right.
So there
right,
was,
right.
you know, like all those local teams, and Durfee was always
Sure.
the top
Yes.
dog. I mean, it's the
Yep.
biggest school. It's
Yeah, exactly,
D1,
exactly.
or it was at that
The
time.
pride of the city, bro.
Yeah,
The pride
yeah.
of the city.
So yeah, like I made that team my freshman year.
Yep.
And then my sophomore year, we had, you know, like a really good season. We won a couple state games, and you know, I had some impactful plays in those games. So, you know, I was pumped.
So everything's going great.
Yeah. Sophomore year as well, turning 16, I impregnated my girlfriend. So now going into my junior year, you know.
Wow, dude, it's heavy, bro.
Dude, yeah.
That's heavy.
Like looking
That's
back
heavy.
now, I'm like, who the hell did I think I was? And that time, I'm like, yeah, I'm having a kid, you know. But when I look at a 16, you know.
Because you know now.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
now. You know
Right,
now.
right. And again, thankfully, I'm from, you know, a super supportive
Yeah, I was,
family.
dude. I hope you don't mind. I was
No,
actually
no,
going to
no,
ask you. I was going to say, man. So you're 16 years old. You come home and you're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, mom, dad, like,
Yeah.
this happened,"
Yeah.
and they embrace you. They're
Yeah,
like,
I mean, they weren't over the moon, you know. Obviously, I mean, you know, by that point, I think a couple of years before, my
yeah,
parents
but dude,
had
that shapes a man, bro.
right, yeah, yeah.
That's a moment in your life where you're like, all right, this is going to shape how I react the rest of my life, dude. Seriously.
Right. Oh,
Like,
yeah,
seriously.
100%.
Yeah.
By that point, I think my parents had divorced a couple of years ago. My dad is with my stepmom, who he's, you know, been married to for years now, and you know, they're like, hey, you know, she's not interested in adoption. You know, this is going to happen.
Yep.
Obviously, no one's you know, you're making your life. You know, and you're worried.
Of course.
You know,
Dude, that's very young, bro.
of course.
That's very
Dude,
young,
yeah,
dude. You
yeah,
haven't even,
yeah.
like, you're not even there. Yeah,
No,
right,
no,
right,
I was a
right.
kid myself. It's just
Absolutely.
kids having kids.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
but-
What year is this?
2001. He
Okay.
was born in January of 2002. So yeah, we they're like, we'll support you, you know, but you're gonna, you know, that summer we found out, you know, a good family friend of ours, my stepbrother's dad, got me in as a custodian doing in the summer at Diamond, waxing floors, cleaning, you know, but like good money, you know, union rate. So, you know, 16 years old, making like 12, 13 bucks an hour back. I'm like, dude, I'm rich, you know.
Right,
I mean, obviously, you know, money's got somewhere to go.
Of course.
But you know, and
But at least you got something, bro.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
Right.
So I did that in the summer. I was already, I think I had done my first communion, like community, not first communion, confirmation. Community service hours at Charlton, doing dietary. Parlayed that into, like, you know, working in
Dude,
the
like,
kitchen.
you're like
there.
the all-American story, bro.
No,
Like,
no, we haven't told the whole thing.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying up until this point, bro,
Yeah.
it's the all-American story,
Yeah.
bro.
I mean, you know, so and the hospital was great, you know,
Yeah.
'cause amidst all this, my dad, you know, he's like, still got hockey though, you know, like you still got practice, you know,
Dude.
yeah, and I wanted
That's
it.
amazing,
It was, I
bro.
was-
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
That's amazing.
The hospital worked. I'd give them my schedule, you know, practices and games, and they'd put me on every night I didn't have a practice or a game. So I'm not talking, you know, I'm not slaving away. You're talking,
Yeah.
you know, 20, 25 hours there. But in the summer, it was 65 hours because Diamond was 40 hours or you don't have it,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. Dude, you're 16.
Yeah. But no, but it, like you said, it helps form you, you know, like you're 60, yeah, you're a kid, but
Very few men that are 50 today have experienced that kind of struggle in their life and that kind of responsibility that young. Bro.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like there's also the flip side of that too. Like my son's mother was going to Conley. I was at Durfee. She was kicked out of Conley the minute they found out. You know, so it's like, and there's also those families that are like, oh, you're pregnant, or you know, you're out of the house. So I look at it like I did what I was supposed to
And
do.
her parents were supportive as well? Or?
Yeah, no one. I mean,
Dude,
no
dude,
one.
dude, that's a big deal. That
Right.
matters.
I mean, I'm sure her
That
father
matters.
wanted to strangle
Of
me
course,
at
dude.
first,
Of
right?
course.
I mean,
Of
it's
course.
a 16-year-old daughter. I mean,
Yes.
she was a couple months older than me. But yeah. So you know, we had Brandon that year, and I remember.
Bro, I had a
yeah.
similar situation in my life to
Yeah.
hear it like from you. It's the other side of the story for me. So
Right, yeah.
like I want you to know
Yeah.
I'm really appreciating this
no,
conversation.
man.
Yeah. Go ahead. You don't realize sometimes the impact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So, and even that year, you know, she was doing Lamaze classes, a couple 16-year-olds in Lamaze class at Charlton. And, you know, I told my coach, I'm like, hey, like, and this was that sophomore year where we had really, really good season. And I was like, I don't know, if I should step back. Like, I got this stuff. And he's like, Kyle, Steve Moore, who I have been trying to track down, Durfee. He coached at Durfee for years. And
Dude, that name sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Fall River guy, grew up in the city, grew up with my dad.
Yeah.
And he was like, Kyle, whatever you got to do, like, we'll make it work. I've been begging everybody at Durfee for some records so I can compile something to try to throw his name in there for the Athletic Hall of Fame there. I need someone to help me with that.
Well, bro, maybe we work on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, maybe we talk after the show.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's a great guy, great coach.
I know some
And
people.
but Steve was like, no, like, we'll figure it out, So played that sophomore year, and then we had Brandon. Life rolled on the same. I worked, school. We raised him. At
So
the
you're
time
still
we were
16.
together.
You're 16.
Yeah,
when Brandon
16
is...
turned. Yeah. Like, I think I turned 16 in November, and he was.
Where does
born a
Brandon
few
come
months
from? Where does the
later.
name Brandon come from?
I don't know. I just so honestly, fun. Bring it back to boxing. I wanted Tyson at first,
All right.
and not
See
everybody
why?
went for it. Yeah, so it was,
See
but that's
why?
he's Brandon Tyson. His middle name's Tyson. So I backdoored it in there.
I like that. I
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, but and then my junior year, I was just kind of a bit of a punk. Not a punk necessarily throughout all aspects of life, but by that point, I was, pretty high on myself and my abilities in hockey. Just arrogant. I was just
Ego.
dumb, by that
ego,
point,
bro.
yeah,
Little bit
ego.
of
Yeah,
ego.
the ego was through the roof at
Yep.
17.
Yep.
And I was always
That's easy, bro. Testosterone plus ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with hockey, I was always that guy that, when we're playing in, I think it's, mites and squirts, you don't check till Pee-wee. I was checking as soon as I could skate. I was, like we talked about, last time, someone slashed the goalie. It was a wrap. So I carry that throughout the whole time I played hockey.
Sure.
And then once you're in high school and you're at the rink, and the guys who come to the games who don't even know hockey, they just want to see fights. And you're out there being aggressive, and you're getting a reaction out of them.
yes.
You're like, oh yeah, this is sick. Yeah,
you're
I'm
putting
that
show.
guy.
It's
I'm
show.
that guy. When really I'm just an idiot.
It's the Kyle show.
Yeah, like I'm hurting my team, dude. I'm still waiting for them to open a penalty minutes Hall of Fame wing so I can be the first inductee in that. And it took away from the rest of my game. That was good.
Dude, that's amazing you still have presence of that, though. Like, you realize.
Now, then it was like, oh, why is coach giving me a hard time? Why is my dad screaming at me because I got thrown out of another game? But it eventually culminated into, like, a few too many incidents that year, and the coach, one of our coaches, pulling me aside and just being, and it wasn't the same coach. It was another, someone had. And he just, I think maybe you got a lot going on. Maybe just step back this season, come back next year. And to me, I was an older kid in my group. Like, school start, what's the cutoff? September. I'm born in November.
Yeah.
So everybody, like my stepbrother, who was my best friend, all the kids I grew up with playing youth hockey were all seniors when I was a junior. So I'm like, no, like I'd rather play this year and not play next year.
Right,
like everybody
right.
I played hockey with
the
since
last
I was
time.
5.
This is it.
This
Right.
is it.
Yeah, this is it.
And their decision was their decision. And then a good friend of mine, Corey.
Did you realize why? Did you know
No,
why?
I was just pissed. I was just like,
Fuck
oh,
them,
exactly, fuck them.
yeah.
I hope the rest of their year suck.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
me.
they fucking need me. They're gonna lose.
Yeah,
They
right,
suck.
right. And
Yeah.
they didn't. The world went on, right? Like, it didn't stop, shockingly enough, because
One of the most important lessons I ever learned in my life, bro.
Yeah, right.
The world goes on.
And it was at that point where a good friend of mine, Corey, I grew up with, and he was like, "Hey, like, you're getting thrown out of all these hockey games for fighting." Like, and he'd been working with Libby Medeiros and training at the PAL for a few years. Corey started young, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 maybe. He was a couple years younger than me. And
You're still 16, 17?
17.
17?
Yeah, I probably just like turned 17.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. You
So
figure
no hockey. You got no hockey.
Right. Yeah, probably, the hockey season starts after, around Thanksgiving, and I was, off the team by probably halfway through the year. My birthday. So I just turned 17,
Yep. Yep.
And he was like, come up and try it. Like, that. The point here is to fight. You're not going to get in trouble for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just need from 4 to 16 or 17, that was my life. And now I have this. I mean, obviously I have my son and I have work and other responsibilities.
No, right.
But I was, up till that point, like a lifelong athlete. It was, what I identified, what I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like, so I went up and tried it and learned real quick that, like, it's not standing on ice throwing haymakers. It's the sweet science, right? Like it's a sport. There's technique to it.
Yep.
The point is to hit and not get hit, which I probably still didn't even learn by the end of my career. Too willing to mix it up sometimes, but I loved it. I loved that it was.
Did you know right away? Like as soon as you did it, you were like,
at the beginning, I was like, man, this is hard. Like I thought I mean, dude, I'm skating. I've been in shape my whole life.
Yeah.
This is a different kind of conditioning.
And I think most people that watch boxing don't realize how taxing it is on your body. Like it's the cardio in it. Like you're constantly
just
moving.
Hit a punching bag for 3 minutes straight.
Right.
And then take a 30-second rest and then do it again.
And I think that's the part people don't realize. Like as you go round by round, the more rounds, the harder it's getting. Yeah,
and
right.
Just hitting the bag.
Yeah.
Let alone, the guy when you're actually competing and there's someone trying to detach you from consciousness across from you, in front of all your friends. It's
especially if they have something to prove, right?
Yeah,
like you're the one thing standing in their way.
Right. And that you each have the same goal. Someone's going home unhappy. But I loved it right away. And the Fall River PAL is old school. It's not it's not a money making venture. I mean, it's just Libya's.
Who funds that? Is it do the police? Do the police actually fund that? Is that where that money comes from? Right, because I always wondered that. Like,
it's their building. I mean, we maintain things. We, like kids will come in and it's like, all right, it's $50 for the year, which is like what a membership is for a month anywhere else. But again, it's like for years and for decades and decades, it was Libby working a union job in Boston, shooting home and opening the gym from 5:30 to 7:30, and then closing it. So it's like, the hours don't work for everybody, but if you want to come train here, if you want to learn, if these hours work for you, it's almost free,
Right.
And the thing is, like, every year, I bet you 10% of the people who put the 50 down the first year were never asked the follow-up year for the 50 or the subsequent years after,
Right.
Al comes in and we bring in the paper towels and water bottles we need. I sweep the floors every Friday. Like, we maintain.
Do you guys have any sponsors?
Space.
Is there anybody sponsoring or anybody?
No. It's
really?
just so, like you said, I'm sure like the building and some of that comes from
some of
through
it.
the fire. The police department. But it's as old.
Dude, I think people should know that,
facility.
dude. I don't think anybody knows that. I don't think anybody realizes that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's.
You think like, and this is like no harm to Aaron.
No.
Aaron with Bernardo Boxing. Like,
Yeah.
that's his business. Like he's running
that's
a
a
business.
different
and
story.
that's
Aaron's feeding his family.
Absolutely, and what an amazing operation he
Right.
has. But this is a different situation. This is almost like a voluntary kind of community situation where
it's a fight gym.
Yeah.
And it's a gym that over the years, I know, like hundreds of kids that have came through that probably would have been in the streets or anywhere, and it gave them a positive outlet, even if it's for 2 hours
Kyle,
a day.
here you are, bro.
Yeah, right.
Kyle, here you are,
Yeah.
bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like what that did for you, he brought you to this moment, bro. You know what I mean? Right?
Right. No, 100%. I would,
We got to talk about that after the show, bro. Like seriously, like we got to get some awareness about that. Definitely.
Cool, yeah. But at that time, my parents always cared where I was. They gave me freedom, but it's, but I was always good at finding and making friends with kids whose parents were the cool parents, right? Which in retrospect weren't.
Right.
But it was like, Dad, I'm sleeping at so-and-so's house. All right, yeah, just have their mom call me, let me know. And then their mom's like, yeah, we went to Blockbuster. Loved Blockbuster.
For the audience who doesn't know, that's where we used to rent videos a long time ago.
Netflix. But they're going to rent a few movies. I'm ordering pizza, and then we do that for a half hour, and then we're all over the city, PAL dances back in the day, which was, cool to fight out of there.
PAL dances, the haunted house.
Right, yeah, and
right?
everywhere. Like, running the streets, and at that age, nothing crazy, smoking some weed or someone's older sibling buying us booze, but without, first my son, I think, because a lot of those buddies that I did that with, aren't in enviable positions now. Some are all right, you know,
Right.
but first my son and that responsibility of, all right, like now you got someone dependent on you. And then, you know, the outlet that I had in lieu of hockey, the gym, the boxing, you know. So
Discipline.
yeah. And again, it's the type of place where, like, excuse me, you know, you got to make sure you're real about it. You know, like, are you sitting there and doing the marriage drills, which are boring as hell, and jumping rope for your rounds for weeks and weeks, months straight before it's like, oh, all right, this kid's for real. Let me show him some stuff, you know, and especially nowadays, it's just instant gratification. Like, show up to the gym and it's like, oh, I want to spar, I want to fight, I want to do a fight next month, and it's like, dude, your 30-day plan is like, you know.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to Aaron, and I didn't know this, but you could make a fighter in 10 days, right? Like, I could literally go into his gym, and he could get me a book, a license, and I'm boxing in 10 days.
Yeah. I mean, good luck unless
right.
That's,
I'm gonna get my ass beat, but nonetheless, I can still do it. You know what I mean? So if I'm crazy enough to throw myself into that, I can do that.
Right. If you find the right or the wrong person to say, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think with the PAL, which has a long history, you know, like, you're representing us when you go out there, so we're gonna make sure you're ready. And you know, Libby, we're all his boys. Like, he's not gonna. There's some guys that have pride and ego and will just march people out there, you know, because the other person's the one getting in there, and that's not the vibe there. You know, it's, you know, I'm going to put you in a good position. I'm going to make sure you're ready, and then that night it's up to you. You know, and that's what I loved about it too. Once I went, because hockey, any sport, it's someone else can drop the ball or.
It sounds like you have to earn your opportunity to get in the ring, right?
Like,
they weren't just going to put anybody in the ring with a PAL on their shirt.
It's a privilege.
You have to earn. You have to earn your right to get there.
It's a privilege.
So when you get there, bro, you don't want to lose that, right?
Right.
Like,
of course.
You're doing whatever you can to keep that.
Yeah, 100%. And with there, like, I was never some stupid athletically talented freak. I was never the strongest.
Yeah, but you have the heart, though. Right?
Well, he just saw that I would take I think, you know, he saw that I'd take direction and try to implement it to the best of my ability, and others had more ability to implement certain things than I did. Yeah. And he saw I wasn't scared, and, you know, I'd show up the next day.
Yeah.
You know, and some of those things I think I see now in some of our younger guys there, like, some of those you can foster, and some of them are just intangible. You know, like, if a guy doesn't have that dog in him, it's tough you can't want it more than that guy.
You can't replace struggle.
Right.
There's something about that struggle in your belly. You can't.
Right.
You can't replace that.
Yeah.
You can't manufacture it. It's not like making a fake diamond. Doesn't matter how much pressure.
Right.
You can't manufacture that. Like, you have to have that.
Yeah. The hard work, the discipline. I mean, we got guys now, they're doing their road work before you don't have to tell them to, you know, and those are the kids that you love, you know, where you can see, all right, like, we got something here.
Right.
You know, but after a few months, you know, I stuck around, and I did a few amateur fights out of the PAL with Libby.
Yeah.
You know, I think the first was a Rocky Marciano tournament, and you know, and then the hockey season rolled back around, you know, 17 going on 18 that next fall, winter.
And you're like, this is my last chance,
exactly.
Right? This is...
Yeah. And by that point, you know, the team, you know, we lost all the guys I grew up with.
Yeah, they're all gone, right? All
so,
the seniors are gone, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm the senior with a couple other guys, and we had, like, a pretty abysmal season. We didn't, you know, it wasn't a great season, but it's still, like, I got to play my senior year, you know, so I obviously wasn't boxing during that time, and graduated high school.
So you're 18.
Yep.
Brandon's 2?
No. Yeah.
The 2?
Yeah, Brandon. Yeah. So I graduated high school. He's, you know, Brandon's 2-3.
So and you and his mom are just,
we were still together.
You're still together.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
Yeah,
we were just trying to paint a picture.
Yeah. No, we were still together and, like,
living together, doing your thing?
You know, we still both lived with our parents.
Oh, okay.
But,
all
you
right.
Brandon would be with me.
Sure.
Nice.
Dude, that makes a big difference, bro.
Yeah.
Like, we're not having that stress. But
right. Yeah.
Yep, totally makes sense.
And you know, and through that time, I mean, again, thankfully, like, the dichotomy between places across the street from each other, right? And I'm not bashing there. It's how that school worked. one person was asked to leave the school for a situation. Durfee
Embraced you, bro.
Durfee has a child care program,
embraced you.
like the vocational part
Yeah.
where people interested in that. My son, once he was old enough, Brandon came to school with me every day.
Yeah.
I'd walk in with him, and again at that point, stupid kid, I'd make sure we had
Yeah, but
matching
school-
Jordans.
Yeah, why
or
not?
Air Force,
Why not, bro?
Then he'd
Why
grow
not?
out of it
Why
in a
not?
week.
Why not?
But he would come to school with me every
Dude,
day.
MTV had a TV show, bro.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Right. So he'd come to school with me every day. I'd be able to go down there and eat lunch with him. He'd leave out of the field house with me. So, my friends and people I was in school with all knew they look now and they're like, damn, Brandon's 23. Like, I remember him 3 years old, walking through school with you. But I graduated and went to UMass Dartmouth full-time that first year, still working part-time. And
doing what? What are you doing?
I think at that point I was still at the hospital, doing the part-time.
And what are you going to college for?
Oh, so I had no idea at that point. Yeah, so I was just like knocking out my gen ed stuff. I had no clue what I wanted to do, but I just knew,
You wanted more.
Right. And hockey at that point, like I was never going to be.
You knew it.
Well, I was never going to be. I'm not 6'2".
Right.
I wasn't going to be
right.
a D1, but I definitely, guys I played with at similar skill level, went to Fitchburg State.
Right.
But
At least scholarship.
Right. But a lot of those guys went away to school, and once I had Brandon, I knew I wasn't going away to school.
Yeah.
And even at UMass Dartmouth, like the time, college is different, the time and discipline, just what it calls for to be a part of a team like that. There's not enough hours in the day.
Sure.
I had
Sure.
trying to
prioritize,
knock out
dude.
school,
Prioritize,
Brandon,
absolutely. Yes,
so
yes, of course.
the hockey stuff, as far as continuing on from there, I played a little juniors, some of like the junior league around here, which, you could fight in, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's just like a penalty. It's kind of like pro rules.
Yeah.
But even that, there'd be like trips on the weekend to New York to play a team or Phil, and just not,
Dude, it's
not,
so
not, yeah,
expensive. It's a lot of
no, and you were paying to play,
dude, it's a lot of, you got a young kid, bro. It's
Right,
You have
right.
Christmases and birthdays
Yeah,
and tooth fairies and
everything.
You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Right.
So, and again, I feel like what my parents are like, when I had Brandon, it's like, we're going to help, but it's your son. Like, I bought my first car. I paid my car insurance. I paid my cell phone, it wasn't
Right.
I had all those bills, even outside
Dude,
of
credit to where credit is due. Like the fact that they supported you through all
Right.
this is
100%.
huge.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also give credit
They helped
that,
me raise
that
them.
you decided I'm still going to do these things on my own. These are certain things in my life that
Yeah,
I'm going to
right.
take responsibility for.
Right, you have to. Right.
Yeah.
So by that, I did my full freshman year there, and then at that point, me and his mom ended up moving in together, and I kind of cut school back to part time because I needed a full time job, and because I had all those summers at Diamond, a full time custodial position opened up, and Ken, who helped me get the position, my stepbrother's dad, initially, put my hat in the ring for it, and I got that. So now I'm,
Nice.
20, scoring a job that like 70 people applied for. Again, union job.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. You're working for the city.
right.
It's
Yeah.
It's
Like
a good thing, bro.
like
Benefits,
2006,
retirement.
2007.
Yeah.
I was making $40,000 a year.
Dude,
like
that's-
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
You're
Like,
doing all right.
Again, you're right. Holidays.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah.
So I started at Diamond. I was still doing school part time, and then right before Brandon turned 6, he was sick. So we didn't know what was going on. He was always like me, go figure, playing soccer, baseball, athletic kid. And then he was just kind of,
And he just started school, right? He's 6
Yeah,
years
he
old,
was
a
a
year
kid-
into
he
school.
was a kid- he was- no, he was-
Kids are always sick at school, dude.
he was 5 turning 6. So
Yeah,
he was literally like 2 months, 3 months into his kindergarten class.
Okay.
And we brought him in, and his red blood cell count's low. We're going to give him an infusion. He might have had some type of virus, perked right up,
Yeah.
and for a few weeks he was good. And then what it turned out was he burnt through those red blood cells, and we were back. And thankfully at that point, his primary care doctor was my primary care, my pediatric doctor.
Yeah,
when
so
I was
his
a kid.
family, there's some
And he
history
was
there.
like, listen, I'm going to send you to Boston. I don't know what's going on.
that
This is
sounds good.
weird. Right. So we went up there and they did took bone marrow, and did a biopsy. And, I was driving right up like Broadway, at the beginning of Broadway. And I got a call from the hospital, and the doctor was like, "Hey, Kyle, now I'm 20. Like I just turned 20. He is about to turn 6, in a couple months." And he was like, "It's not news I'd normally give over the phone, but, I can't tell you. I got news to tell you, and you drive an hour to Boston to tell you, but Brandon has acute lymphoblastic leukemia, ALL. Yeah.
What?
So, which
What?
is, a blood cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, so, I don't even,
Dude.
in a daze on the other side of the phone, right? Like, you might as well.
That's why you remember exactly what you heard.
Chinese.
That news, bro.
Exactly where I
dude,
was. Like rolling up by the little
I got
dealerships
goosebumps
over
when
there.
I got goosebumps when you said that, bro.
And he was like, "You guys gonna come up?" I think it was like a Friday, right before the end of the day. He's like, "You're gonna come up Monday. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna go through the protocol, and we're gonna get him started with on his treatment." And then Monday we were up there, and
Hold on. So, stop for
yeah.
a second. Stop. Hold on. So you get this news.
Yeah.
Obviously, mom and dad.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Like, so you call obviously his mom first.
Of course, yeah. His mom,
Right.
my parents. I mean, obviously, everyone knew he had something was going on.
Right. Right.
We were waiting for what the report was from them, and I just no one knows what to say or what to do, or how. I remember him telling me on the phone. He's like, "Yeah, so, but listen, like, we caught it early, especially the age he's at. This is like an 80% cure rate, but right away, all I hear is
leukemia.
20% of these kids don't make it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's
dude. You hear 1% and yeah.
Right. So yeah, you're just numb. And we went up there. They were unbelievable. So he ended up at Tufts.
I was gonna say, where did you go? Tufts.
At Tufts Floating Hospital, they called it because
is that Washington Street in Boston?
It's right in like Chinatown, exit 20.
The company I work with, we work with them.
Yeah,
so,
They're unlike from the child life people to the doctors,
Teddy
nurses,
bear.
just the best people in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
But so
shout out.
I didn't hear a word that he said. Just like, all right. At that point, you're just like, you know what you're doing. I have no fucking clue.
Say the word, dude. I will. Whatever you
make my kid okay.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And Brandon's at an age, and I think they said it. Like kids are so much more resilient than adults, and he doesn't because you also don't know the totality of what you're going through.
Yeah, right.
So, like, bud, you're sick. We're gonna be in the hospital a lot. Some of your hair might fall out, but you're gonna be okay. And he's like, all right, he's a 5-year-old.
Yeah, I probably took that worse just now when you said that.
Right. And us, like, everyone's putting on, my parents, my brothers, everyone's just putting on game face, like, hey, bud, yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yep.
So I think initially it was supposed to be like a month in the hospital. And
Thank
they
you
have
for
like
sharing
the
this, dude. Thank you for sharing this, bro. I appreciate it.
it's-
Thank you.
Like you said, it's how'd you get here, and all of
Yeah,
it's
bro.
I
Yeah.
guess adds up to whatever's.
But I appreciate it, and I know my audience appreciates it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supposed to be, I think, a month in the hospital. And if I'm dragging out the story, tell me, all right, give me the synopsis. Supposed to be a month in, and he just, right out of the gate, he just responded so well to everything. And they were like, listen, if you want to drive up.
What is the treatment for that? Like,
No,
what is
dude,
it?
It's just a protocol of a bunch of poison, which the chemo,
chemo.
it's, he was on.
So they chemo his blood. Is that what it is? Is it almost like
because it's like a
dialysis?
It was. He never had dialysis. He never had to do radiation. It's just all these chemotherapy drugs, which basically
injected.
Yeah.
Okay,
So he
all
was on, steroid. He was on IV, oral chemo. Like they have these protocols that are obviously tested and tried, unfortunately, probably over the years on what worked on some
what
people
works.
and what didn't.
Sure.
So they come up with this plan for he's going to take this for this many weeks, then come off it for this many, then go on this for this many. But he just responded really well to it, and there were certain ones that I think just attack the cancer cells, but most of that stuff is just like, hey, this alone would kill you, but what it's going to do is kill the cancer cells and the good cells. But the good cells,
what a crazy
the good cells
conversation,
bounce
dude.
back. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
cancer ones hopefully don't.
Yeah.
But he responded so well to the treatment out of the gate after like a week. They were like, if you want to let him sleep in his bed and drive up here every day, you can. Or like Cam Neely from the Bruins, has the Cam Neely house up there where it's basically like a hotel part of the hospital where they'll put families up.
Yeah.
You know, that people donate to or fundraise for.
Those are all the amazing things that nobody knows about, dude.
Right.
Nobody knows about. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was like, hey, listen, we'll make the trip. Like if we can get them home to some normalcy and not have the kid live in the hospital. And that was our life. I think it was a 4 or 5 year protocol. For 3 or 4 years out of the gate, it was we got chemo 3 days this week, or 4 days this week, and it was just wake up, drive to exit 20 in Chinatown, go to Tufts, do his chemo for the day, drive back. Diamond was unbelievable.
Dude, just the parking. I know that place.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude, just the parking is a struggle.
Right. But the
dude.
hospital goes so out of their way. Like we got parking vouchers.
Dude, I love to hear that, bro.
Food vouchers.
Yeah.
They took care of us so much. But then Diamond was amazing. I worked second shift. So I worked 2:30 to 11. So it was, whenever you get back, come in, it made for a long day.
Dude.
We get back at 5, then I go in at 5, then I work 8 hours, and then sleep a little bit, and then we go back up. Yeah. But there's nothing else you can do but
Kyle,
just do
nobody
it.
prepares you for that, bro.
No,
and just even being so young, people get married and they plan to have children.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get married.
Yeah.
We've been married. Let's have kids. We have a foundation. We have all these things ready, right? They're prepared. And dude,
completely flying by the seat of my pants the entire time.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, with a unbelievable support.
Well, that's
system.
what I'm saying. Like I only mention that because there's so much amazing support.
Right. It takes a village. Like
absolutely, bro. Yeah.
Like should be the picture in the dictionary. Like my parents are my brothers. Like we all raised my son. Like I didn't raise him alone by any. You know what I'm saying? Far from it.
It brought you all guys together. Brought you all together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially once this happened. Like my parents are making trips up. Her parents. My brother come up and hang out for the day with them.
It builds a family, bro. Right.
Right. Yeah. But all with this lurking, boogeyman. Like, is he gonna? He'd be. We're in there for hours, and they got video game systems, and he's playing with some 12-year-old. And I'll think back, like, man, like. Brandon with this same illness at 5 and that kid at 12, those odds they gave me might be reversed for that kid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
right.
It's brutal. But his attitude towards it just made it so much like he was just, all right, this is what it is. Like there'd be times we go up and be like, he's playing T-ball at this time. And I'm like, can he go to his game tonight? They're like, if he's up for it, let him do whatever he wants. I remember one of the games he got tagged like with a hit, pitch, and he had like the hugest bruise on his thigh because like his plate, everything is, and I'm like, oh, wow, I'm the worst father in the world, no, you're not,
bro.
But he was fine,
Yeah.
His hair fell out. Kids would be like, hey, what's up with your hair? I'd be like, taking some medicine, it makes my hair fall out. He didn't go back for kindergarten that first year. They brought tutors in. My stepmother has taught her whole life, so. We kind of had, a built-in educator that so he didn't fall back.
Dude, what an amazing story, bro.
No,
no, come on, bro. Seriously, like these amazing people in your life,
bro.
Right. Like,
Absolutely.
seriously,
I'm so blessed.
Absolutely.
That regard, I'm so lucky.
It's so easy to lose sight of all that.
And I have
so much going on.
I lost,
dude.
But incredibly long story short. That's already long.
No, dude. There's nothing long about this story. Please continue. Continue.
He kept responding really well, and there's always we'd need blood transfusions, so we're there. They put like a port. They put ports in a lot of these kids where so they don't have to stick a needle constantly every time. Yep. They access like the ports like a mesh, and it's tied into an artery. Yeah. But it's a foreign object in him, so there'd be times he doesn't feel good, and you just pray his fever's under 100, because if it's 100. Or over, it's a 3-day visit because they got to make sure there's not any. They do blood cultures and infections, So it's just learned way more than you'd ever want to know about.
So he's 6. This is his age 6. This is a year.
From 6 to 9, 10. Wow. Not that. The further we got out.
So as you less and less, right?
Yeah.
Less and
so
less.
it's
He's
twice
responding.
a week.
You're getting positive.
Every other.
So
week.
when's the first time you get good news? Like, hey.
Yeah, like I didn't know this at the beginning. Like, what they deem remission is just kind of like, all right, his cancer cell count is below this threshold. So I think he was deemed like in remission maybe earlier on in those few year period.
Yeah.
But it's not like, all right, so yeah, he seems
It's
good.
a
Like, you don't
remission.
stop.
It's
You go,
receding, but
yeah,
it's still
you
there.
want
We
this
still
not
have
to
to
come back. I mean,
zero.
to this
We want
day,
nothing. Yeah.
His risk or likelihood of developing cancer, which it seems like everybody does at some point, is going to be much higher because he's had it. You know, but those people carried us. You know, nurses, child life people. You know, they'd call him like, hey, we just got tickets to the Bruins. All these guys, like Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron, both have boxes rented out for like the year, and they just donate the seats to different children's hospitals every game. Like, hey, you guys.
Nobody knows that, bro.
No.
Nobody knows that,
like,
dude.
You know, Mike Lowell, who I think had testicular cancer, did a Mike Lowell Day all the years he was here. Like, we went, had a picnic with at Fenway, you know, with Papelbon and. Tim Wakefield, Terry Francona, who beat cancer. You know, he's walking in bald, telling my son we got the same haircut. You know, like all like moments that you didn't want to earn that way.
Right.
You know,
right.
but he. Right.
Brendan's a hero, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there was when I went back to UMass, you had to write about a hero, and I wrote about him. Yeah, my professor was a hard ass. He was like, "Oh, it's a cop out." You know, I'm like, dude, read it first.
Yeah. Seriously, bro.
You know, but his attitude towards it, and just whatever, man, luck of the draw, how his body responded to it. Yeah. He did great. He hit all his markers, and there were setbacks along the way, but nothing. Like I said, he never needed to do radiation. He never needed a bone marrow transplant. But that pretty much obviously took over life. Like I left. I took from school, and schools being schools.
So how old is he when he rings the bell?
How old is he when what?
When he rings the bell, when he's cancer free?
Maybe 10, 11. It felt like it went on forever, man. You know what I mean? Bro. Yeah. Like, I mean,
it's like 5 years, 4 or 5 years of
and
this.
throughout that, like, he went back for first grade.
Yeah.
You know, they'd miss days for us to shoot up. We'd, tons of homework coming home. I can't figure out his first grade math assignment, and I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, right.
This isn't how we used to.
Are you smarter than a first grader?
Yeah, no.
Probably not.
Yeah, right. No, it definitely wasn't. But with the help of everybody, he made it through. And I'm trying to think now. My early 20s, things started to go back to some normalcy.
Yeah.
So
you're still working at Diamond. You're still.
Yeah, so I was working at Diamond the entire time. I was, I eventually went back to school part-time, and then at some point, it was like, hey, like, what do you do? I think I got like 2 full years of credits. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I had no idea. And
dude, that's the biggest problem, bro.
Right? Yeah.
Who does? Bro?
No,
seriously,
right.
Right?
Like, like at that with the years you go to school, most people don't have any idea. I mean, there's some that know right out of the gate. I want to be a doctor. I want to, be a vet, but. Yep. I had no clue.
Right.
So my Uncle Steve, my stepmother's brother, we were at a pool party at his house, and he's a teacher. He's like, dude, be a gym teacher. I'm like, yeah. He's like, it's the same salary. You got no homework to bring home. You love, sports
activity,
athletics.
right? You could do
and that's all it
want.
took, because I was like, I don't.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And they were like, well, you got to get out of here then. Like, we don't have phys ed as a, they didn't put it like that, but like, you should look into Bridgewater State. Bridgewater State has a great phys ed program, because
you have to be a teacher technically.
Oh,
right?
yeah, like I had to pass my
you had to do all the teacher stuff.
licensure.
Exactly.
And I think that's what shocked me when he told me. I'm like, gym teachers get paid the same as English teachers? He's like, yeah. Like, you need your teacher's license. Like,
you could be a sub.
Right,
you could be a sub.
Yeah. Like, you still got to submit all your, your paperwork and evaluations. It's across, so I transferred to Bridgewater State and started chipping away at classes there, which was more of a pain just because it's a longer drive. And then but again, like, Diamond's like, but once I started getting closer and closer, and I couldn't finagle my classes to the time, like, this class is only offered at this time. Again, Diamond's like, all right, yeah, like, then coming at 4:30 instead of 2:30 and work till 1 instead of 11. So again, like, I was fortunate, got through most, and around that time is when I had picked up boxing again, just looking for something to do.
Yeah. Back at PAL.
Back at the PAL. Yeah.
You're like, Libby, I'm here. I'm back.
Yeah. He's like, all right, well, get to work. You got to lose some weight. Yeah. You look heavy.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 24, 25. It was I did the 2010.
He paid you $50 too when you went back.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Just making
yes,
sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Not that anyone ever asked for it. I did the Golden Gloves in 2010 and 2012. Competed in those, and then did one more amateur fight, and then around that same time is when I was exposed to prescription pills, and then that just kind of.
Really?
Yeah. So
Dude, many,
yeah,
so many,
yeah.
bro. So injury, I'm guessing injury.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
'Cause
So
that's every time, bro. It's an injury,
right,
and
not even with the injury, not prescribed, but it was initially for that purpose. But like I don't know what you when I was in health class in Durfee, it was like I never grew up with addiction in my family.
Right.
Like I could count on one hand the amount of times I'd seen my dad have a drink as a kid. He just
So
wasn't
you-
a big drinker.
so you
He was
don't
never in the
recognize it.
house.
So you don't recognize
right?
it,
And like
yeah.
I feel like then, like now, there's a lot. It's known, but then it was like, all right, like an alcoholic was the guy sitting under the bridge in a trench coat, and you don't do heroin and reefer madness. Even
Right,
though none of us
right.
bought into that,
Right,
but like there
right.
wasn't like these are pills. These are prescription pills. And I did those gloves in 2010, and I did the gloves in 2012, and then I think in June of 2012 they did a show at the Bank Street Armory that Mike Herron had put on as kind of to honor Davey Garvin, who is like one of the
Yep.
greatest, one of the really great Fall River boxers that came out of the city. And leading into that fight, I had busted my hand up. I had went and got a cortisone shot. Didn't really help. And it was just a buddy that was like, hey, take a couple of these and you can get through the rest of the camp, And then, a couple of these turned into, this feels pretty good.
Yeah. I can still-
Probably have like some undiagnosed anxiety and I'm not anxious, this, and then it just, you don't know what you don't know. Again, like I was never, I knew these weren't my med. These,
You know what's funny? Someone I cared about deeply was addicted to, and I didn't recognize it. It's funny you say because alcoholic. Like I grew up with an alcoholic. Like, so for me, I could see an alcoholic from 3 blocks away.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what prescription addiction was.
Yeah. Right.
And I was with this person 99% of my time, and I didn't recognize it.
No idea.
Like it was
right. Yeah.
So I totally
Yeah.
I get it. I totally get it.
Right.
Dude.
And it just snowballed.
And then you can function, dude. Right? You're still doing your thing.
That's the
Right? You're
thing.
still functioning.
And again, like you're ignorant to the world, those parts of the world those parts of life that you haven't experienced personally. So while I'm developing this, Percocet habit, I graduated college. I did all my student teaching. I ended up starting a sub and landed a phys ed job in the city.
Dude, you're doing exactly
what I mean?
you set out to do.
Yeah,
right.
right. My principal and my boss who hired me there also hired me at his gym to do some box classes. So I'm like, dude, an addict, and it's all wrong, but to me then it's all
You were functioning,
dude,
bro.
yeah, an addict doesn't graduate college. An addict doesn't get a teaching job. It's all just perpetuating the fact that I was lying to myself, but I didn't know I was.
Right.
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 And then take it even further. By this point, in the midst of that, me and my son's mother had split up, and we had bought a house a little.
Do you think it
earlier.
was all like because?
Oh, it was
of it?
definitely
Like, it was
tied in.
all tied in.
I mean,
yeah.
Definitely having Brandon, I think, facilitated
Sure.
us staying together longer.
Yeah.
And I most people
Dude,
have a
and
kid
you're still
that-
developing, bro. Like in all fairness, dude, you're a baby. You met her,
Right.
you were a
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah,
and you turned from a baby into a man, and there's a lot of changes.
Right,
that
yeah,
take place
both
in-
both of
yeah,
us, people
exactly,
change.
same
You know what I'm
thing,
saying?
same
I
thing.
mean, I don't know what the
Absolutely.
stats are
Yeah,
on like high
right.
school sweethearts,
dude.
but,
Right, right.
but we
And
just-
you guys did an amazing job through that journey, like,
right,
just-
yeah, and we've been through all that together.
Yeah.
So we had split up, sold a house, and it was always easy as far as like, Brandon's gonna stay with me tonight. Brandon's gonna stay with there was no my
Yeah, no
weekends.
contention. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
He
yeah,
would spend nights with my parents.
Yeah.
We were both have a night to ourselves. Again, like they've always been that common strain.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure that was hard for them too. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you guys so much together. You guys have
right,
so
right.
much.
Yeah. But
At the end
their
of the day,
worry was Brandon.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I losing myself. I finished school. We had split up, and then I had taken the civil service exam for the fire department. Now my grandfather.
How old are you? How old are you?
I was about to turn 30, maybe, or
Okay.
just turned 30.
All right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you-
I was at Diamond for like 10 years, nine and a half years.
And you just landed a gym teacher job,
And
right?
then, yeah, so I left Diamond for the gym teaching job, and then I had and the firefighter thing, like you were talking about, like I got the pictures of like 3-year-old me in front of the fake engine with the plastic helmet. Like it was just we talked a little bit before, like my grandfather and my dad's dad was a firefighter. And
Yeah.
he was
in the city.
in the city. Yep. He was a lieutenant out of downtown. And then, my dad retired 7-8 years ago, but he did 32 years in the city. So it was
I've seen
something
that, bro. So if there was, like you mentioned it earlier, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
If there was a little bit
There
of
was
that,
right.
it was that, right?
But honestly, like you'd think, but my dad kind of dissuaded me from it because, well, he wanted me to get an education. He wanted me to get,
Don't put all your eggs in this basket.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, you're not going to get rich doing it. It's
Dude, it's service.
a hazardous
It's a
job.
service. Yeah, it's a community service.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it until I got it. Every day my dad would come home from work and be like, "How's work?" He's like, "Oh, it was fine. It was good." Like, he could have been responding to an accident the night before with, 3 dead teenagers, but it wasn't something that he ever, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
We'd never come home and say, "Oh, you want to know what happened
Yeah,
today?"
right.
Ever.
Yeah.
But I took the civil service exam almost just to like check it off the list. Like like we were talking about, like I can say that I tried.
Yep.
But at that point, they had just laid off like 30% of that was when like their numbers got really low. I'm thinking maybe like between like 2014, 2015, around there.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, I'm like a year into teaching and I get the email like, "Hey, come in for an interview." They got a SAFER grant through the federal government, and they were putting on I think it might have been like 12 or 13 guys. So I went, interviewed.
Dude, what an opportunity, right?
Yeah. And again, even in the interview, I look back, like my ego right there. It's like, how do you think you'll respond to, a call with a child or, it's a traumatic,
Of course.
job. Not every day, but sometimes.
Dude, car accidents, bro.
Right. Yeah.
You're
car
responding to car
accidents.
accidents.
Right.
Yes. Enough said.
So you're showing up on the worst day of someone's
Absolutely.
life every time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I go in there. I'm like, I got the best answer. I'm like, oh, it won't affect me at all. I watched my son beat cancer. I'm never going to run into a stranger on the street I care about more than him. I walked out of there like, oh, I fucking killed it. And then took a few more pills because I was trying not to be sick that night when I went home.
Yeah.
And at no point in my mind am I like, this isn't fucking normal.
Well, no, because
you know what I mean?
The brain,
Right.
it's the bitch voice,
and at
dude.
that
The
point,
brain will convince
well
you.
before that point, like it goes from, oh, I'm taking this and I get an effect from it, to just
You want to
your
feel normal.
body's not producing any more dopamine.
you wanna feel
Same thing
normal.
with booze,
I wanna get
like,
sick.
and
The
I just
fix.
need to get off empty every day. It's a hell, and I need to wake up and make sure no one finds out. Like, I was never like a party guy.
Right.
It was
Dude, you just want to be normal.
Yeah, it was all hidden, and I don't know how the hell to get out of this. So this is just my life now, which is pathetic looking back. That's what I just resigned existence to be. But like, hey, I can get through my day with this many pills.
So
in my
the
body.
concern is I need to get the pills, right? Like
the minute you open your eyes,
I got to make sure I have these, right?
Yeah. So they called, I got the job, went through the academy, and all that time masking a huge, addiction problem. try to sort it out in any way. I was kind of like, it is what it is now, you know.
Well, it wasn't a problem, bro.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
At this point,
other than the fact that, like, you know, it drains
yes, but
every...
your brain's convincing you otherwise, dude.
Yeah, right,
yeah,
right. Like, you know, I'm racing home to grab, before we split, you know, bills out of the mail that are unpaid, and just, oh, yeah, they're paid because I got to go support my habit so I can actually get out of bed and go work my job to earn more money that I'm just going to light on fire with this, you know? Yeah. And then within, I mean, I loved the job itself. You know, it sucks that those 3 years I was on the job, I was in that own hell that I made for myself, you know?
Yep.
But I did those, you know, those 3 years on the job, and there's you know, there's moments that make it worth it. Even go, you know, like my dad retired while I was on the job. You know, like Chief finagled it, so I worked with him that last day.
That's cool.
Go
man.
home. They drive the guys home on their last shift. I was there, you know, and just experience my dad in that environment.
You would have never seen that otherwise.
No, you know, playing cards and talking shit with the guys, you know, and just to see the you know, the respect that he had from the other guys he worked with, you know, to know my dad on a level that I would have never been able to.
Sure.
You know, but within, as you'd imagine,
most of us don't, bro.
Right,
most of us don't see that side
like
of our dads.
I'm so grateful for that. Yeah. But I mean, like, as you'd imagine, within those 3 years, things just got worse and worse, and you can only keep that jig up before people start. Hey, you know, Q owes you money. He told me, you know, you have to fix his car. You know, and everyone's doing it out of the goodness of their heart. No one knows, you know, but it's like, dude, yeah, I get paid tomorrow, and that check's gone. I'm working on trying to pay guys back out of the next one, or borrow from someone I haven't bought. You know, it's it's
nuts.
Yeah, it's gross. And eventually, it all culminated to I made such a huge mess of it that, you know, I got myself fired. And even in that moment, you know, the fire department was willing to offer me help if I was, you know, and that was the first time I ever tried to tackle that. And all along the way, like, I'm still coaching Brandon's.
That needed to happen, bro, right?
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
right.
Right.
Needed, that was the moment where...
Right, like, I have people like, oh, man, like, you can't get back on, or too bad you didn't figure it out, you know, a little earlier and get help because you could have saved the job. And I'm like, I'm that guy that, like, that's hot, don't touch it. And, like, not only do I have to touch it, like, I have to touch it like 4 times to prove it for myself.
But that's that absolute, right? Like that absolute moment where you're like, okay.
So, but I think I needed it to blow up as spectacularly as it did. Like, you know, everybody to know the stupidest shit I did, to be in the paper, shit that you know, I'm keeping my kid home from school, things that, you know, for the day, so no one says shit to him.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have. I don't think I would have changed anything if it wasn't as uncomfortable as it got, you know. But the fire department was basically, when I first went, you know, Jason Burns was our union president.
So you know, I grew up with Jay.
Jay
was my neighbor.
Yeah, helped save my life. You know what I mean?
He's a good
stood
guy.
by me.
Who's always, dude, my whole life. He's always been a
So like
stand-up
stood by me
Shout
when
out,
it was the least popular thing to do with everybody else.
But that's who he is, though.
It is, right,
If you know Jason, that's who he is.
So they got me to a program in Belmont, in leader program. It was like law enforcement, active duty, early responders, where, you know, I had to go detox, which I'd never done in my life, you know, and coming off what I was coming off, you know, you feel like I thought I was going to, you know, die. But you get through that, and then it was a residential, like...
Real quick, how long does that take? Is it a long process? I mean, I know it's different for everybody,
like the like acute stuff, like the throwing up, the like basically feeling like you have the worst flu in the world.
Yeah.
You know, 4 or 5 days, but it's like you're not normal. Like, I didn't sleep like a, you know, normal person probably for months and months and months. You know, I learned a lot about it just because I eventually had to if I wanted to change anything, you know, but like the amount of artificial, you know, dopamine and, you know, opiates that I was putting in my body, like it literally changes like the pathways in your brain.
You're chemically, you
like,
change chemically,
so like,
you do. Yeah,
like your body just your body regulates this
Like you're thirsty, you want to drink.
dopamine or
Like your body
serotonin.
says,
Yeah.
drink water. You're
Right.
thirsty.
But
Yeah.
when your body's recognizing for this, that ride was like 7, 8 years. Not that bad the whole time, but the totality of first picking it up and putting it down. So my body's had all this flood of artificial stuff in it. So it's not making anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And just because I stopped putting it in, it's not like the next day the body's like,
your
like
body
that
wants it.
gradually
Yeah,
creeps
yeah,
up.
yeah,
And that whole time you're feeling like shit, or you're not sleeping right, or you know what I mean?
Bro, a lot of people, and I want to say this because I want the audience to know, a lot of people don't associate that with prescription medications, right? They think it's the heroin addicts. They think
it's heroin. It's the same. It's just
the brain
it's just
reacts the same
prescribed
way.
pure
Chemicals in the brain,
and
dude.
those are
Yes.
things I didn't know. I would never.
Dude, nobody ever thinks.
And
that they're gonna,
most people I know that have went down that road, eventually it just becomes
normal.
Well, it becomes too expensive, and they graduate to
The other things
heroin.
cheaper.
Yeah,
heroin's cheaper.
right.
It's
And I
cheaper.
was just always so terrified of that idea that I just kept burying myself financially and robbing Peter to pay Paul. To at least I know what I'm taking.
So where do you end up? Where do you end up for recovery? Where do you go? Is it
yeah. So the like I said, Jay in the hospital. Even though
this
to
is
me
local? This is local.
it's in Belmont.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was McLean Hospital.
Okay, just shout out, man.
Yeah,
I always have to talk. When people
Yeah.
really help, dude, because you're a success story, brother.
No, I
and
mean,
I just
for
I wanna
today,
give-
for
well,
today,
dude, dude, that's one day at a time, brother.
Yeah.
And so I want to give them credit.
Yeah,
'cause-
no, it was. I learned a ton there, and for me as someone who'd never been exposed to
Dude,
that,
you're a better person today, bro.
I think. Oh, it's definitely helped.
Amen.
form
Absolutely, bro.
me to,
Absolutely.
But for me, I think it was a step that I was willing to take too, because all right, yeah, I'm gonna go to classes, I'm gonna learn stuff, I'm gonna stay away from this, but like the residential part of it was kind of like a firehouse, right? Because it was other. I was in there with a couple guys from Worcester Fire Department.
Right, brothers
some
helping brothers,
police
bro,
from
right?
Somerville.
Yeah.
Guys who
Dude,
just
everybody
come
gets
back
hurt.
from service.
Everybody gets hurt.
Right. And like learning how to go through that stuff without, like I remember the worst call I had. I was working out of the Flint, and we got a call to a kid not child not responding. And like right away when you pull up, like usually you're rolling with an engine and an ambulance, and there's like 3 ambulances. Like everybody who was available just went. And this kid was 6 or 7, but like you could tell he had some health issues. Like he was like the size like a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
We had like a breathing machine in there, and we show up and we're working. I'm only a couple years on the job, and I'm doing compressions and with my officer, and this kid's father's in the back just screaming to bring him back. You know what I mean? And eventually he's like, Kyle, just get him down to the ambulance and let's get him to the hospital. So I'm running down the stairs with this kid's lifeless body, nothing. And I think back to that, I'll be straight. My kid had cancer and beat it. I'm not going to run in it, but nothing prepares you for shit like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. This lifeless child in your arms, bro.
Right. And get him to the hospital, and he didn't make it, And I remember that night at the station, they come in and they're like, hey, that was fucking call was bad. We got crisis, and they've come a long way with this stuff. I'm sure even just from, the time my dad was on, his dad, we have crisis counselor, a team that come in and sit down, talk through it. And they kind of go around the room, like, you good, and they just happen to start on the other side of the room. And I see, all these senior guys like, no, all right. Like, yeah, I was rough, but I'm good. I don't need anybody. And like, what do you think the junior guy is going to say? Like, raise my hand. Like, yeah, that fucked me up.
Of course, dude.
Because it's a testosterone driven.
Dude, they did a study real quick. CIA did a study with 18 people in a room. 17 of them were agents, and they held up a triangle, and the 17 agents said it was a square. By the time they get to the 18th person who wasn't in, they're like, it's a square, even though they saw a triangle.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Like
right,
that's
right,
it's
right. It's so, and I didn't. No, I'm good. But like, what did I do as soon as we all left there? I made a phone call, and you want to mask. You want to mask whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Just to get through that moment.
Hide the pain.
So learning at McLean, that shit's gonna happen, and you're gonna have to find
Are
healthier
you
ways
comfortable?
to
Like,
cope
how
with
much
it.
are you taking? How much are you putting in your body?
Oh, it was terrible. Like by the end, and I had no idea, right? Like what I've learned a lot now, like in the field I work in, and ironically enough, like working with
Right,
pharmacists,
yeah,
right?
right,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
joke
yeah.
about that with my wife, like of all jobs, but it was between like 500-600 milligrams a day. Oh yeah, dude, just think the money,
Bro.
and I'm talking like wake up, go to work. If the guy gets detailed out, I'm driving the fucking engine. As crazy as that sounds, and try to explain that to people. They're like, "What? This guy is a menace. This guy was, But if I didn't put that shit
Dude,
in
but
my
to
body,
you, you're normal.
I could,
To
yeah,
you, you're
right,
normal,
right,
bro.
right. Like running into buildings like that. Like
Yeah.
I remember going to calls, and at this time, this was kind of like the spike of kind of like the opioid epidemic,
Yeah,
right? Like
yep.
people were getting hip to, man, these pills are, and then I remember like the bulletins coming around, like you see a powdery substance, don't go near it.
Don't
Like
touch
paramedics
it.
are
Yeah.
dropping just
Yeah.
from moving it.
Right,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
So people were falling out all over the city. We go to like 3-4 overdoses a day. But in my mind, I'm like, all right, yeah, like this is
I
awful.
gotta-
No, well, this is awful, but I know what I'm taking. I know it's a prescription medication. I know it's not laced with
Dude, the
anything.
brain's-
Dude, you
dude.
just, yeah, right.
Right?
Like literally go from that
Right.
to right back and taking whatever I need to take to go to sleep, or that we, to rest, and then we wake up for a call, come back.
Yeah.
It was just that rat race. It was miserable. You know what I mean?
So when does it happen? When does that moment happen when you realize this is over? Like, I'm not gonna be a firefighter anymore. Do they call you in? Is it
so the moment like I knew it was up?
you
but
knew it was,
in that,
did you
in
know it
that,
was coming? Did you know it was coming?
I mean, I was pulling so much shit just to get that day. Like
Because
like
this is a brotherhood too, right? Like
Right.
you guys are sleeping together. Like you
Of
guys
course,
are sleeping
right,
in the
yeah.
same
and
bunks.
I'm
like
doing
you're
these
brothers.
guys dirty.
Yeah.
And not out of like the malice of my heart, just because at that point you can justify and rationalize anything in your head.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay him
just to
back.
get
Like,
through.
this is just for a minute. Like, they're gonna help me out,
right.
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like looking back now, it's like things I wouldn't dream to even think of doing now. But in that moment, you're not you. You're in there some,
Yep.
and it's not an excuse. It's just
No,
what
dude,
it is. So Jay had called me. Jay and CJ called me like, hey, it was right before Christmas. I think like 2018. Because it was coming up on my like third, like the end of my completing 3 years on the job. And he's like, hey man, I'm gonna scoop you up. I just gotta talk quick. I'm like, all right. So I was like, oh fuck, like, and Jay, like we'd go out together, grab lunch, but I knew, and then he was, we drove down Sylvia School because I live on Meridian, just pulled in.
Yeah.
My son and my stepmother both worked there, and not at the time, but now. And he was just like, hey, I know you're going through something, man. And that's what Jay told me he's learned, because he does a lot with like the peer outreach stuff. He's like, if you ask,
I'm gonna have him on the show, dude.
yeah,
I'm gonna have him
if you
come in.
ask someone if they have a problem, like where guys are hard, no, like if you say, Lee, like I know you have a problem, how can I help? Like it kind of disarms.
Absolutely, dude.
You know,
Something
something so small and stupid like that.
the
but
excuse
it's,
is gone. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't make an excuse.
Right,
Like
right.
we're admitting it.
right.
We're,
If you ask if someone's okay,
yes.
we're all gonna say fine.
Right. Now
You
I
know
gotta
what I'm
call you.
saying?
I have to call you a liar in order to
Right.
bring you the truth.
Yeah,
But if I
yeah.
come to you and say, bro,
I know.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. Like, how can I
know.
help?
Yep.
So, and that day, Jay was like, listen, I don't know what's going to happen with the job. There's a lot going on, but I just worried about you. Like, I want you to be okay. And he was like, you want to go? I can get you somewhere today. If you want to, I can get you somewhere after New Year's if you want to stick around. And I was like, just let me spend, this was like 2 days before Christmas, something like that. I'm like, I just want to be home for Christmas and then get me the fuck out of here. Like me being around for New Year's ain't gonna,
no good can come of that.
Yeah, I gave, the heads up to, my now wife at the time. We'd been living together, my parents, and, like the day after Christmas.
Did she know? Did she know?
She knew I had a history with it, but thought it was behind me. And
Yeah.
again, like,
Was she
The-
surprised though? After the fact, was
yeah,
she like, wow?
yeah. I think it had kind of come to a head in our household, like
Yeah.
literally like a couple weeks right before it. So, like I said, like the dominoes all started.
Sure.
started to fall.
Like, oh, that all makes sense.
And then everything adds up, right?
Yeah.
So I went up like 2 days after Christmas. My best friend John, who's a lieutenant on the job, drove me up, and like we laugh about that day with all the excuses. Like, dude, you give me all these excuses. I wanted to strangle you, but he didn't. Like, he drove me up there. Yeah. He hugged me, told me, write my number down. I'm gonna take your phone and call me. Let me know you're good. And that whole time I was there in my mind, just because you're still in a mad state of mind.
Course,
I'm like, oh, if I could salvage the job and I can go back and I can do this and I can do that. And I think deep down Jay knew it wasn't going to be there, but like that's not news I needed right then.
Right, of course.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
So
I think Jay's main concern was getting you better.
It was, right. And he said, he told straight up, he's like, you know,
I'm worried about, I totally see it.
He's like, I'm worried about Kyle, not Kyle the firefighter, just you know.
Yep.
So it was about a month I was up there, and, you know, was finally, I mean, you're still a mess, you know, you're still not sleeping, still, before that, at one point, there was one guy on the job who had been in recovery for a while, took me to my first AA meeting, and I got a taste of it, you know, and so I had some familiarity, but I wasn't doing anything. I was just there, you know. It was another thing I could do to prove to people that I was okay.
Listen. Just sit and listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of it soaked in, but for me it was just another tool to prove that I'm not a shit show when I really was. You know. So I came back, and then it was, you know, I'd say I came back, and within 2 days there was like a front page article in the paper about Fall River firefighter, you know, taking money.
So
and
you're not prepared for that, dude.
Oh no, no, dude,
right? That's the last thing you
think.
My
brother or someone sent it to me. I'm like, oh, you know, and then you know, it's everywhere. You know, we all have regretful things in our past. Shit, we don't, you know, the dumbest. But like for me, it's like the stupidest mistakes you've ever made. Like everybody you've ever known knows about them. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, and then I was like, the last thing I was like, I'm going to come back. You know, worst case, I'll go in. You know, Chief Lynch, who was the chief at the time, who worked his entire career with my dad. You know, and whether or not some of these opportunities they afforded me, like getting better, you know, I look at some of that stuff like it was just out of respect for my pops. You know, like I don't know if they would have done that. Maybe they would have. You know, but.
Let's just say they would.
Right, yeah, and they might have, you know, because, you know, Lynchy's awesome. But my thing was like, all right, I'm going to come back. Everyone knows I went away, you know, I'll be honest. If I lose it, I'll just go in there and fall on my sword. Like I was calling Jay as soon as I got back, like, hey, can we go in and meet with the chief just so I just wanted it over, you know, and whatever was going to be next. Yeah. And at that point, Jay's like, listen, dude, like, I get why you want to do it and I respect it, but like, I think some of this is in like the hands of authorities now, and like you got to just pump the brakes and let it ride out.
Just let it, let the smoke settle.
Right, but again, like now it's home barely clean, out of my mind, trying to hang on to that.
You want that instant gratification. You like,
I need to
know what I'm doing is.
And then, you know, 2 days in, I'm in the paper. And when I left, I was, you know, the JV hockey coach at Diamond, the assistant for varsity with my boy Lenny, and coaching Brandon, playing high school hockey. To, you know, Brandon, you might want to stay home from school tomorrow. And thankfully, like, no one really fucked with him.
Dude, but you know, dude.
Right.
That's probably the worst part. Like, not what anybody's thinking, it's like, what you're thinking.
Dude, you know, by that point, my dad had barely retired from the job, you know, a great, respectable career. And then it's like, oh, yeah, Q's kid. He was here for 3 years, flamed out.
Did your dad ever talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked, my dad's not a super overly like he has always
Man
shown
a few
up.
Words.
Yeah, like he shows how much he cares, and like we would bust his, like we were saying before about the hockey, like me and my brother would bust his balls. Like, the only firefighter without a second job. Like we were his second job. Like I have no idea how he paid for the hockey leagues that I played in on with you know what I'm saying? And if it wasn't me,
travel league in itself.
Yeah. And I was in 2 or 3 of them, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, all my equipment was great. It might not have been the most, but like you grow out of all that shit in those years, you know, like those
skates, away.
Yeah, those skates are good for a couple of years, and then your feet are bigger, you know?
Right.
So, and if it wasn't me, it was my brother, you know, like we were that second job. But, and then after that one, a couple more articles and then legal stuff that came down with it. And, I resigned because it was, you know, it was basically.
So technically you're like on administrative leave, right? Because you're
so
out.
for a few weeks I was on
Yeah.
like leave while
yeah.
things got sorted out. And then it came to the point where it's like, you know, hey, Q, if you want to, you know, the thing is, you know, like we were talking about before, like articles on like that shit lives forever.
Sure.
You know, like it was
Sure.
the one and only time I'd ever had any court involvement. Like I'm sure now I could probably go get that stuff. It was all misdemeanor. So I get it all expunged and it wouldn't show up on a Corey check
Sure.
or a job
Sure.
interview.
Sure.
But I've already, dude, one of the jobs I worked at as a moving company when I was just staying afloat, you know, brought it up because people Google, you know, they just
Right.
throw my name.
Well,
in,
the
you
name,
know,
they
yeah,
put the
that
name in.
you can't erase. That's one great thing boxing's done is bury it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, but and I don't even care to bury it because it is. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is.
What a great journey, brother. What a great story.
Yeah.
Here you are, bro.
Right. I mean, I'm fortunate. You know,
Seriously,
and it wasn't
though.
a straight. You know, it was. But at that point, I'm unemployable.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So now you resigned. Like now you're
I
unemployed.
resigned. Thankfully, I had paid into like the Fall River Retirement Board.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
those
Yeah, so
that
some
almost
annuity,
decade from
it's-
Diamond.
yeah, yeah.
Along with that, so you know, I forgot how it worked. You know, you didn't get any of the interest. You basically just got what you put in. But that was, you know, basically I had money to pay my
Function.
bills.
Yeah,
right.
right,
And then
yeah.
it was just, you know,
Because you're living with your girl, right?
yeah. Me and my wife lived together. You know, at that point, Brandon's in high school. My stepdaughter's in middle school. We got bills, you know, and then just you know, a buddy who paints, I can go paint with him a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was the point right there where I really started to learn about, you know, the program and for whatever reason, just the first things I was exposed to, and I never like kind of found NA. It was just AA.
Yeah.
It's the same principle. It's the same problem you're trying to solve, you know, at the
Right.
core of it.
Yeah.
Which is me at the end of the day.
Bro, it's amazing to find.
Right.
Right.
But at that time, I had nothing but time on my hands.
Sure.
And I was just fortunate enough to get brought around to some meetings where these guys who were like old enough to be my grandfather. On the surface, I got nothing in common with. But they knew me enough from going to some of these earlier when I wasn't really buying in, and then everybody knew kind of the fallout of what happened.
Yeah,
where
so now there's a story. Now we know.
You're right. So I'm leaving.
You went from denial to acceptance.
Right. Yeah, forced acceptance, really. You know, like so when people are like, oh, you're ready.
Dude, the universe
like,
will shove it down your throat if it has to,
like
bro.
you have to be ready. You can't have it forced. Like I feel like it was forced on me. I wasn't like I didn't wake up that day like I'm ready to stop.
No, right.
I didn't think there was any stop coming. I didn't think it was possible. You know, it was forced on me, and then
all the signs were there. You didn't see any of them.
Right, yo,
to the
just blow
point where the
past all the
universe said to
signposts.
you, "No more signs, bro. This is it.
Right.
It
Yeah,
has
it's
to
a
stop.
wrap.
It
Yeah.
ends."
But that's where I found people where it was like, and these guys didn't know me from a hole in the wall. Other than like a few, you know, there was some guys I worked with who were open about their recovery. And they're like, hey, what are you doing? It's 9 o'clock. Like meetings from 8 to 9 at BCC. Like, what are you doing? And like, there was a rhetorical question. They knew I didn't have a job to go to.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you know, we're going to go grab breakfast and then go to something at noon in Providence. You want to come? And like, I just tagged along, you know, and then osmosis, you know, just little by little, you start learning and you see these guys who
You're like, I'm no different than these guys.
right. But on the outset, it's like this guy's 30 years older than me. He's like the sweetest guy I've ever met. But at one point, 30 years ago, he was a terror to his wife and his kids.
Would have shanked you. You're
Right. Yeah. And that's what I found is like all this guy knows about me, other than surface stuff, is that like I'm going through hell, and he found a way to get out of that, and he wants to share it. You know, and it's the only place I've found something like, and it's truly. It's selfless in the sense like they don't want shit from me. Like I didn't have any extra money to spend. They weren't asking me to take my car. It was like jump in the back of my truck. We're going.
Yeah.
Like come on, kid. And by kid, I'm like in my early 30s. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it blew me away. Like
That
I
people
had,
are this selfless, bro, right? Selfless. This is completely selfless.
Right.
There's
Like I had people I know my whole life who were either
Yeah.
just, and by no fault, no one knows what to say, so they don't reach out. And then there were, those day ones who were like, dude, I don't care what happened. Like, you need anything, hit me up, And then, there was the ones where, they'll jump on and throw a Facebook comment and jab at you too, even though I did nothing to them personally. It's just misery loves company.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
that's the one rough part about social media is,
Yes. Yeah.
but these people who didn't know me from a hole in the wall are like willing to help me put my life back together, and yeah, it just gradually, like, what do they say? Like, it doesn't, if it's a million miles into like the forest, it's not, like a hop, skip, and a jump out, right? Like,
Yeah.
it took me a while to dig that hole.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, all right, like I'm clean now and I'm not lying to people, so give me it all back.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right,
Like,
right.
at the beginning, like I said, like,
You think you're ready for it, but then
Right.
you realize, nah.
well, I think at the beginning you're like, oh, all right, like, because that's the most glaring problem is Kyle struggling with a substance.
Yep.
And then once I get rid of that, I'm like, that problem's gone. Why isn't everything perfect? And you forget, like, everybody else who isn't an alcoholic or an addict has fucking problems. And
Dude,
shit
you just
happens.
numbed all your problems.
Right,
Like
right,
none of them,
right.
they didn't go away.
No, yeah,
You
I just buried them.
You just
right,
buried
I just
them.
masked them.
Yeah, and now here they are.
Right.
Hey, surprise.
Yeah. So it was, moving company, Stop and Shop warehouse, Blount Seafood, all jobs I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
But like, I'm like, I got a college diploma right now. That's pretty much useless. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm greater than this, right?
Well, yeah, right. Like, I understand. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've been fucking humbled. You know what I'm saying?
But
like,
still,
yeah.
you just-
but in the back of my mind, I'm like, this
I'm
can't
meant
be
for
the rest
more.
of this can't
I'm
be the
meant
rest
for
of my
more.
life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and but slowly by surely, a little bit more.
So no boxing in your life during this time?
None.
Like you just
None.
completely
No,
just,
none.
it's all.
No, yeah, no.
So we're talking how many years away from boxing? Probably.
I'd say from like 25 to like 34.
Wow. So
And I
close
would
to
like
10
pop in
years.
the gym here and there,
Yeah, yeah.
but like no sustained, not training for anything.
Yeah.
So that because it was. So those first 7-8 months, I was on point. It was great, and then, like most people's story, at some point, you're like, oh, I got this, I can, it's insidious. It's calling you like, oh, you could just be a normal person and enjoy the weekends and have a little fun. And
Right.
that went from there to here real quick. Like that run was really short, and went to ad care and did that again. And that was
So you went for another.
another brief run.
Yeah.
And then I was
Dude, good for you for even recognizing that, dude.
and
right?
then, well, at that point there was like the court stuff got sorted out, and I
Yeah.
had some, at the beginning they really wanted to make an example. It was public. Like I was like, dude, I'm really gonna do jail time for having a drug problem right now.
Seriously, right.
But that's what it is. That's how a lot of people get there, and then that's the like the rest of the rest of their life.
They make it seem malicious, and it's,
Right,
there's
yeah,
nothing malicious
right,
about
right.
it.
I mean, it's
literally a
wrong. Like,
No,
I'm
no.
not saying a penance
Dude,
shouldn't be paid.
it's fine.
You know
but
what I mean?
It's
But-
survival, dude.
Yeah.
Your brain is literally in survival mode.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
So, and that again wasn't by any like I don't earn credit for. I didn't step up and say, "Hey, I slipped up. Let me get like."
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah, you
going
weren't
for
expecting
going
nothing.
for random tests, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Hey, at this point, I've never run afoul of the law, And I'm looking at this probation officer, like, man, this lady sucks. When she didn't, she's just done this for 30 years
She's
and has
holding you
heard
accountable.
everything, and she's
She's
holding
holding
me
you
accountable,
accountable.
right?
Yep.
And she's like, you got to get somewhere now, or like I'm pulling you in front of a judge and asking him to put you. So, Star was full. I went to ad care, 30 days. And I think that experience was even better for me because I didn't even have the comfort of like, oh, this feels like the firehouse. Like this was like me. And don't get me wrong, like some guys with PhDs and some guys who've never worked a job in their life, some guys who are just there because they don't have a place to sleep for the next few days.
Yep.
And then it was kind of like, fuck,
Like you went from jail to prison.
right. And then it I think it just hammered home that point. Like, yeah, there's no half stepping. There's no just here and there. Like it's
Dude, meanwhile, your parents, your wife, your kids.
right. And everybody had like looked at those last few, like, oh, he's getting over
Yeah,
this. And then
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
like what like it kills me when I like the sleepless nights I put them through. Like my wife is.
Yeah, but does that make the man today, bro?
Right, but I mean, when everything blew up with the fire department, we've been together for less than a year. Yeah. Like, I had my son, she had her daughter.
Dude,
we didn't have a child
so many
together.
questions, brother. Yeah,
like, she had to take a huge L to stand by me.
Is it
yeah,
worth
like
it?
even her family, who the best people, like, listen, we love Kyle, but like, do you want to hitch your wagon to this? Like, you're helpless.
Right?
Yeah,
right.
Like it's
right.
It's and but she did, man.
Dude,
like,
that's amazing,
yeah,
bro. What's her name, if you don't mind?
Mandy.
Mandy.
Yeah.
Shout out,
yeah,
Mandy.
Yeah. No, she was, I mean, no one was thrilled, but she's like, she stood by, and it wasn't like an open invitation to keep fucking up. But it was like,
but she believed
I
you.
believe in
Obviously,
you.
she's
Yeah.
seen something in
and,
you, dude. She believed
however
in
you feel like her thing was like, God's
Dude,
telling
even
me
your
don't
son's
run,
mom too, bro. Like all these people that were in your life seemed like they genuinely cared about you, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
These are people that, been in my life for different seasons.
I can see why, dude. I can see why.
Nah,
I can see why. I know. I can.
They're
see
all
it, dude.
crazy.
Nah, we're all crazy, bro.
Yeah.
But I can see it. I can see it.
But yeah, I went to that ad care the day before my birthday, November 2nd of 2019, and spent my birthday. So that first time, the year before, I spent celebrated New Year's at Belmont, and then
here's your birthday,
and then here's my 34th birthday. In a detox, and whether something clicked or whatever I prayed enough, or I just
was it harder or easier?
I think it was.
Did you know? Like you knew what to expect, kind of. You knew it was coming.
I mean, it was different. You know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I hit up Jay, like, hey, I know I'm not on the job anymore. Anyway, you can get me back there. It's what I know. It was equally as hard, and I think more so just because that time it's like you don't know what you don't know. Like you have the excuse of ignorance at like the onset, but at this point, like 7-8 months in, and me just inexplicably being like, yeah, life's starting to get better. And I'm not sick anymore, but I want that feeling again. Like it's
see the light,
like,
right?
it's right. It's like constant vigilance. Like it's true. Like and if it wasn't for these guys that come to these meetings, like 13 years sober, and then they pick up a drink, and then they're off. But then they come back, and now they have another 9 years strung together. Yeah. If I hadn't like experienced that. I might have been, and that's why I always like credit those guys, because if I did, I could be like, oh, well, that didn't work for me. It worked. It didn't even work for a year.
Right.
So I'm going to do my own thing, or I'm just going to go back to what I was doing, because the further you get away from it, the less miserable it seems.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
Like I don't know, you got like a built-in forgetter that'll just, so that time was worse than when you're like there in your own feelings, like fuck, like. I got through like most of the physical stuff. Like you had these people stay and hold you down, and then you just did this to them again. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, now there's that sense of I owe these people something,
and I don't have the excuse of I didn't know. Like I knew by this point, like I knew what I had.
Yep.
I knew there was a way to try to fix it on a daily basis, and I'm still here.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that one was worse. But at that point, I was still like. Odd jobs, I think I was working at the moving company.
Yeah. But you're 34. You're going for this last.
Yeah.
And how long? So how long are you there?
That was like a 30-day program.
So 30 days. So 30 days, you finally get out of there.
I get it. Yeah. Yep.
Do you have a different sense? Is there a different feeling in you?
It's not like some people say like they have like this come to like
awakening,
the spiritual
right? The
awakening,
right?
Right. And I guess they say like sometimes fast, sometimes slowly. I think mine was more like a slow. Like I didn't have some aha moment, or I didn't all of a sudden feel. It was just like, again, like, and probably to like what you said, like these by 34, a lot had happened, right? Like having Brandon being sick, going through this once. So like I think you just either build up a natural resilience to it, or it kills you, you know?
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to. Built up some resilience, and I was just like, yeah, it is what like it is what it is, like just got one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And again, for grace of God, whatever, they're crazy. Like these same people stood by me. They were livid.
believe in
you
you,
know,
bro.
like a lot
They
of tough days with my
They
parents.
see
and
something
my
in you
wife.
that you didn't see in yourself.
Right,
That's really
right.
what it is.
Yeah,
That's-
100%.
yeah, absolutely.
And you know, from that point, it's just I jumped right back into the program and meetings, and I actually found a guy to go through the steps with.
So this
and-
is like your sponsor.
yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and you know, and some of that stuff I think is applicable to anybody, regardless of if you have.
I was just going to ask you that, dude.
Dude,
like, you would recommend this to anyone,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
even if you're questioning it, like give it at least go and just
right, just like more than even helping me get away from the substance that plagued me. It's just it helped me, I feel, become a way more fully formed, less
aware.
egotistical, you know, like no one takes that type of honest inventory of themselves if you don't have to.
True
and
that.
usually it's when like
True
your
that.
feet are to the
Yes,
fire.
yes,
Like
yes.
making a list of people I hurt, resentments that I had, even just that alone. And then like, dude, on that resentment list, I had one of those coaches, and I'm like, yeah, this fucking guy took away my junior hockey season. I wasn't that much. And then when I put it on paper, and then probably the experience of coaching high school hockey myself,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, if I had me on my team, I
would've
would
done
get
this.
rid of me so fucking
You probably would have done it
fast.
quicker. You probably wouldn't have
I
been as
probably would have. I
tolerant.
probably would have
Yeah,
assaulted
yeah.
me on the way out the door,
Right,
and never
right.
let me back for my senior
Sure,
year.
sure.
You know,
Right, right.
so it's like,
So that
but
grace,
so, yeah,
right? You
but
get-
it's uncomfortable,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
right,
Like,
right.
and you know, I know it's like beaten to death now, but like, you don't grow from a position of comfort, right? Like any
Absolutely,
growth
bro.
is
Dude,
through
struggle, dude.
whether
The
it's
struggle.
adversity, just uncomfortable, being uncomfortable, and that's where I feel like going through that process, as uncomfortable as it was, probably more uncomfortable than the actual physical part, which felt like hell at the beginning. You know,
yeah.
makes you. I think it just makes you more empathetic. And you know, like ego's never going to be dead. You know,
Sure,
like I'm not gonna when you walk out there and everyone's going nuts and I'm about to fight.
Well, the truth
like
is,
it's
so what do you do with the ego, right, Kyle? What you do is you go back to boxing,
right.
Like,
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, it was you know, definitely partially driven, I think, by the ego, and also just like the space to fill. You know, so. Around soon, you know,
sense
once I
of
started,
purpose, right? What's
yeah,
my purpose?
yeah, right. And once I strung together, you know, some time, I was working at Blount Seafood,
Yeah.
and it was a good job, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
like, but again, like, that I was a
Dude, is that your purpose?
right, no, yeah, it wasn't
Right.
fulfilling, and
Yeah.
and honestly, you know, it's not super lucrative, you
Yeah,
know, like I got
yeah.
a raise to like $18 an hour. I'm like, oh, I was grateful for it, you know,
Right.
compared to before Kyle was, well, but that guy makes this much,
Sure.
you know what, rather than being
Dude, you're making union rates. And
yeah,
then-
yeah. Rather than
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
rather than like being grateful for what I did have, it
Sure.
was always what that person has. Why I don't have that?
Sure, sure.
You know, but and just one day at Blount, I had while I was at Blount is when I started getting back into the gym, and at the time, and I had always only trained at the PAL, and because our hours are always only like 6 to 8. Sometimes it wasn't conducive to. I mean, it was never really conducive to working second shift.
Sure.
Like even when I worked at the hospital, it was like, say, you know, after high school. In high school, it was like 4 to 7:30.
Yeah.
But Libby would keep the gym open for like an extra hour and go home late and wait for me to get there and work with me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you don't forget that.
no,
stuff, man.
no.
Right.
But when the only other gym I used to go to, my lifelong friend of mine, Ben Pitsley, had opened Pro Fitness, Weaver Street down
Yeah,
past.
yeah. I can see the sign.
Yeah. And so Ben opened the gym when he was like 20, and
Yeah.
it was open for like 13, 14 years. And it was like a community there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would go to Ben's, you know, if I had to work out during the day and I couldn't make it at all at night.
Yeah.
And around this time, I'm trying to think, you know, 2018, 2019, I started going back to Ben's during the day. And, you know, me and Libby weren't in touch as frequently, and he had went through some health stuff. He had retired. He had back surgery. And in my mind, the PAL wasn't even, I didn't think it was open, you know. And again, my schedule too.
Sure,
Like,
sure.
So I was going to Ben's gym, and that's when I crossed paths with Aaron. And Ben had also put himself through, you know, finance school, and he was, you know, the gym ran, but it was its own.
Yeah.
You know, Aaron was doing some boxing out of there.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And Aaron was like, "Hey, man, like I know, like at one point, Aaron was at the PAL for a bit as a kid, and was like, we knew a lot of the same people. It was like, if you ever want to fight, you know, I got a fight teams, guys training, and like it marinated for a little bit. Like I just came and did my own thing,
Sure,
and then eventually I was like, hey man, you know, I'm thinking about it, and right around that time, I don't know which one it is, but the weed shop had moved in, and eventually like the landlord was like, hey, like I'm booting you out.
It's all weed.
This place is taking the whole
right,
thing.
right. They're paying the bills.
Yeah. So Ben ended up moving the gym briefly to Somerset, like right after, I'm going to say Bradley's and date myself, but where Stop and Shop is, you know what I'm saying?
Whew, yeah.
Then you got like like with Family Dollar, that lot. He had taken over a spot in there. And that's where I first, you know, started training with Aaron. COVID.
Service merchandise that was over there.
Yeah.
Trump, you're right there, bro.
Cost plus.
Oh, shit.
So then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And like the world shut down.
Sure.
And
especially gyms, dude. They were like no gyms.
No. Yep. And you know, you had no choice but to shut down. And then while things were shut down, you know, Aaron had just kind of put together like a legit fight club in his basement. He had always had his basement kind of like furnished for training people, like doing privates. But with the gym closed, he had like a little ring down there, and then like Saturdays, full like COVID mandate, social distancing guidelines, you know, like when, you know, neighbors are calling on each other, we would have like a block party worth of cars, and Saturday morning it'd be like 20 dudes down there sparring, just having a good time. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Yeah.
Dude, you guys made it.
Yeah. Oh, and dude, and like, the cops were called.
Dude,
you
that
know?
is crazy.
Yeah. But, and then it kind of transitioned into.
I love to hear that.
Yeah. It was awesome. It kind of transitioned into Aaron opening his place.
Yeah.
But
So Aaron says to you, I want to promote you.
Yeah, you always like, you know, at this point he was training me while I was there, and he's like, you know, you want to take a fight, and dude, I just want, at this point after everything that had happened, like I just wanted to come back and maybe do the Golden Gloves again, like amateurs, do something, right?
Do something.
But all that stuff had shut down.
Yeah.
And he was like, listen, you know, I got to connect with this one guy, the Boston Boxing Promotions.
Yeah.
Like I can see if he's got somebody. If we can get you on a show, if you want to fight, that's the only, like, basically it's like, dude, I like been in the gym forever, you know, I spot, but you know, not
so
anything
you feel physically ready, right?
Yeah,
you're ready to fight.
Like I felt good, but like I didn't have some amateur pedigree to turn pro. It was just like, it's either do this or wait for the world to open back up,
right?
You know, and at that point I was like 9-10 months sober, and I was like, I just gotta fucking do something.
Yeah,
like and we called, and he offered an opponent, this kid Josh Ranieri, who's since passed, awesome kid, really tough fighter, and he was like, hey, I got this guy, you know, he knocked the last, like I can't get anyone to fight him, would Kyle take it? And we were like, yeah, fuck it, we'll do it.
I was like,
I'll
do it, bro.
But even then, you know, to his credit, you know, because most promoters are probably just like, you know, yeah, give me the body.
Yeah, with the body. Yeah,
Peter did some research, and he even called Aaron, and then this was one of those moments like, I'm never gonna get away from this. He was like, hey, you know, I read some stuff on Kyle. Like, you sure he's good? Like, I just don't want to put someone in there who's struggling and have somebody get hurt. And Aaron's like, listen, dude, like, he's good. He's coming up on a year. Like, he's good. Like, that first fight was in New Hampshire.
Dude, you would have thought you blew up a bus.
Dude, I know. Yeah,
like, seriously, like, right? Like, for real.
There's been some shit that's went down since with guys.
Shit.
And it's like a blurb. And I'm like, dude, I didn't, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. It was all fucked up. And
no, still.
But yeah. It was just, I guess, the right or the wrong time, you know, time for them to run.
Absolutely.
With it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. There was a lot going on. There was fucked up mayors going on.
Right. This was the during.
There was so much corrupt Giselle Correa. There was so much corruption going on, bro.
It was all through those
there
years.
We go.
You know?
Yeah, it makes sense, dude. It makes sense.
But like that first fight was in some gym in New Hampshire, streamed on YouTube. The only people in the gym
Aaron talked about that. Yeah,
were like fighters or you know, people there
like
with
an underground
the
event.
Yeah. Like that was the only way. Like, dude, we had to wear surgical masks for the weigh-in. The ref wore a mask the whole time he reffed the fight. You know. But we went. We had no idea. Like, Aaron had never had a pro fighter. I had never fought professionally. No fucking idea what we were doing. Like, I I had been watching a lot. You know, you watch all these like embedded UFC series, kind of like behind the scenes stuff, and I see all these guys like, oh yeah, dude, like I'm just gonna cut all the weight the night before, and then you go in there and you're huge. Like, yeah, it sounds great, but it
actually
honestly,
do it, dude.
It honestly feels like going through detail. You know, like we cut 13 pounds the night before, and then
dude, how do you do that? How do you do that?
You just sit in a sauna, and I mean, there's way easier ways to do it. Once I learned the science, like now I could get like 10 pounds off in a week. Just with like
drinking
manipulating
this.
my diet, like getting rid of the sodium,
foods,
water loading, some suffering at the end. But this was just like straight 13 pounds.
Purge it out, get it out.
Sitting in the sauna, not drinking a sip, hot, you know, miserable. Like I got pictures on his back deck where like he's like, dude, I thought you were gonna die on my back porch before we.
And
drove
how
up
long
there.
before the fight?
Oh, it's the day before.
Dude, so are you not beat for the fight?
Course,
like, you don't have the energy, dude, right? You don't have the stamina.
Right, and that's why you don't do it like an idiot like I did this way. But so we made weight. I'm probably like, 15 pounds heavier the next day. And again, it was a really tough kid we fought. And I haven't been in the ring in 8 years. I've never been in the ring with small gloves or no headgear. You know what I mean? I've never had Aaron in my corner for a fight.
So you don't even know what it feels like.
Right. Like, I mean, headgear, I mean, it's not, it's, but it's different.
Dude,
you know what I'm saying? You can get caught.
Yeah.
It's different. And those, you're going from 16-ounce gloves that we train in to, at my weight class, it was, I think, 154, 10-ounce gloves. But like 6 ounces is a lot less padding in that glove. You don't realize till you're struggling to get your hand in it,
Right.
And dude, like I won the first round, second round was close. And then like you said, man, like I just put my body through hell. Like you're never, even if you've put the number back on the scale, like your brain is still partially dehydrated. And you're going in there to fist fight someone.
You're going to max out.
Yeah.
You're maxing out, dude.
And I pretty much, tapered off at the end and gassed out and, lost a decision against the guy. But it was like
But you're like, I can do this.
Right. Yeah.
I did
yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like I was like, dude, I fucking did it. I didn't go in there and get killed.
Yeah.
Like this kid couldn't come to my locker room fast
And it was
enough.
a decision. It wasn't like the guy knocked you out, bro. Right.
Like this guy. No, I saved that for the last one.
Yeah.
But like he couldn't come to the locker room quick enough and give me props and take a picture. Like I was like, all right,
That's
like
cool,
maybe
man.
I belong.
That's cool. Yeah.
And then like I found out afterwards, like my buddy Corey, who initially brought me, he's like, oh, Libby watched the fight. So I called Lib. I'm like, oh, Lib. He's like, looks like you didn't do enough road work because I was dehydrated, but
it's the marathon, bro. It's the marathon.
Yeah. So that's how it's that's how the pro thing started, and that was within my first year of like that sustained
So now you have
clean.
now you have a new love, dude. You're like,
right?
wow,
Yeah,
I can do this, right?
Like we took the next one, we did that one. We did one 6 weeks later. On Thanksgiving Eve.
This is with Aaron. Yeah.
6 weeks later against this kid, and dude, I got COVID like 10 days before the fight, and this is like, before the vaccine, before like, and I'm not gonna, dude, like it.
Well, no, you're thinking you're gonna kill somebody, right?
Yeah,
like that's where we were at. I thought I was gonna kill people.
There was no part of me that was.
Oh my God, I have.
There
COVID.
was still my selfish Kyle. Like I'm not pulling out.
Yeah.
But like I also was like. That the week before the fight, I drank Gatorade and I lost 12 pounds,
Yeah.
And I went out there and tried to stop the guy in the first round and almost did. And then I got caught with something. I got dropped. I got up. I finished the fight. I won the fight, so because I got dropped in that first round, I lost that round. And then I had to win the next 3 to win it. And I won it. But dude, like,
wow.
Lungs on fire. Like I didn't tell the promoter till after. I'm like, hey, by the way, I had COVID last week.
Dude, yeah, you
Fuck
were.
you.
Yeah,
you
were fighting through all.
Oh yeah, like the ride home, we were pulling over. I was throwing up blood. Like they wanted to bring Aaron and Michael. Like, dude, let's bring you to the ER. And at this point, it's like, no, dude, if you bring me to the ER,
they're gonna know.
Well, at that point, like I had already tested. I just didn't tell anybody. I mean, I told him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like I didn't
right,
want to
right,
get taken
right.
off the card.
Right.
And
because we have to remember the time,
because
it was chaos, dude.
Yeah,
People were fucking COVID crazy.
Right,
dude.
right.
Yeah.
I was like, bring me to the ER. I'm going to be there alone. They won't allow like anybody to come.
Yeah.
So they dropped my ass off at home and checked on me a few hours later. And I remember my wife looking at me like, all right, like you've had 2 fights, like you got your professional win.
She's a saint.
She's like, are we done now? And like I looked and I'm watching it back on the stream, and I'm like, oh, like. they called me a dog. Like, I'm not done yet. And she was like, this poor woman, dude. She's like, really? Like, how long are we going to do this? You know? And I didn't know at that point how long, you know what I mean? At that point, I think I was at Blount. So, like, they fucking loved it. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't impact work. Like, I worked, like, 5 a.m. to 2. It was a perfect schedule. Yeah. I would leave work, go train with Aaron. I could be home, you know. And then nights we'd spar. I'd go a little later. Yeah. And then, we did another one in... That kid wanted a rematch, and we fought again in March. Yeah. And it just so happened my wife's childhood friend had a wedding in New Hampshire the same day. So... this fight was like a noon. It was like an afternoon fight. So I went up with Aaron and the guys, fought. I beat the kid again, and I ended up catching some elbows. I had cut in the back of my head. Yeah. So there's a video of me going back to Mike Bryant, who owns Loves Boxing now, and Mike's like, "Oh, you cut." He's like, "You're gonna need stitches," and I'm like, "I got a wedding." He's like, "Well, you're still gonna need fucking stitches." So they end up. I learned way too many times now because it's happened multiple times that like in your hairline they prefer to use staples. I guess it's easier than stitches.
Yeah, and then the hair doesn't get all yeah.
So I won, got out of the ring. The doctor threw a few staples in the back of my head.
Just threw them in there.
I had brought my suit with me. I changed into my suit.
Savage, dude.
And then they drove me. I just lucked out. It was kids, like 4 miles down the street, and I met my wife at her friend's wedding.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, no, it was a fucking good day. Right? Nice little Saturday.
Right? Just a regular Saturday, dude.
Yeah. And like I didn't look that bad, but people were like, "Didn't you just have?" I was like, "Yeah, I just fought like an hour ago. Congratulations." But yeah. And then, like fast forward, at one point.
You're regular, right? You're doing regular
I'm regular.
fights.
So I've had a few fights. At this point I was at Blount. It was going well. Training, staying involved with recoveries. The further out I got, the easier it became. Yeah. If I remain consistent with it, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm starting to earn.
Dude, if you're running marathons, a marathon's a marathon. It's just another run. Yeah,
starting to earn trust back from everybody. Yeah. And at some point, I'd been in touch with Libby, and Aaron started having a couple other guys turning pro. So he had things popping off, and then, long story short, I kind of ended up gravitating back towards like going back to where I started.
Your roots, dude.
With Lib.
To the roots,
knowing that Libby was actively involved, even though, albeit not in the gym.
And he's back, right? Medically.
Yeah. I mean, he's not back up in the gym.
No, but he's back.
He's literally watching every moment we're there.
Your schedule at Blount is working right.
And I was able, he's able to he's actually in my corner with my team at the fights. Yeah. So, I sat down, tried to be a man about it, sat down, me and Aaron had a discussion at the gym. He understood. And I think it was a lot different than like, hey man, thanks for kicking this off for me, but that shiny object over there is calling me. And I'm going to jump. He understood. Like you're going back home. Like you've always been a PAL guy.
That's Aaron, though. I'm not surprised.
So I went back there and kept trucking along. A few more fights. And then one day I'd thrown an application at Meditech after like a shitty day.
And how old are you now? This is.
I'll have been at Meditech 4 years in June. So, maybe like 36.
Okay. So like 2 years. This is all happening in 2 years.
Yeah. And I got the job there. And again, this was like still coming out of COVID. And it's it's an medical IT company. Sure. I'm in hospitals training people. So they didn't know what it was going to look like. It's like, you might be in the office every day in Foxborough or some days, but just plan on that if you take the job.
Sure.
And then it was like, fully remote to start, then 20% in office. Now we're at,
and you're adjusting to all this.
Yeah, 40% in office. But it was, a job that got me closer to now, making close to what I was making on the fire department.
Okay.
So
you're kind of getting back
I was back to using my degree.
Right.
I feel like, dude, I'm sad, especially when I was in school, it was like, hey, here's your student loan money. Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, well, the semester only cost me $7,000. You're giving me 12. And they're like, oh, just take it. It's like the biggest scheme in the world.
Yeah.
You know, if some
Yes.
18-year-old kid walked off the street and asked the bank for $20,000, they'd be like, beat it.
Right.
But you're going to school here.
Oh,
take
yeah,
it,
sure. Here you go.
Yeah.
Take it, yeah.
And I mean, it worked out that it became beneficial to me because that when Brandon got sick, it was like, oh, I got a little money. Like, we're not cooking many home cooked meals. Like I can stop and pick food up on the way home.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I was making good money at Diamond, but still, there's a lot of, extra expenses with that whole part.
Yeah.
So, but it always killed me that, like, dude, I got like $60,000 in student loans.
It's still there.
And
it's there.
And I'm not even able to use this piece of paper. So
Yeah.
it felt good to be able to, like, all right, like, they hired me basically because I got the piece of paper that says I committed to something,
Sure.
which is,
Well, you showed
got
up
my
every
badge.
day.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
that's
Right,
else.
right,
The
yeah.
college degree showed you
yeah,
showed
I
up
showed
every
up
day.
right. It's
That's
exactly
it.
what
Yeah.
I did. Like,
Yep,
dude, I
yep.
was, it was not straight A's. You know what I mean? I mean, I took 4 accounting classes to satisfy my maths, so I didn't have to take calculus and all the shit I
Dude,
didn't
even the
understand.
best doctor was the worst in
Yeah,
his class.
right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Like that. So.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's where I still am today as far as as work, and it's been good. But
So you're training this whole time.
This whole time,
You get
yep.
the job at Meditech,
Yep.
and then you say to yourself, I want to fight it. I want to get another ring again. I want to do another.
it never, like, from that point, it was always like every few months. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was I'm trying to think. If Meditech started, fought with Aaron. I think in March.
Mm-hmm.
Went back to the PAL. I fought in July. Fought Thanksgiving. And that was, there was some cool opportunities that came up along the way,
Yeah.
like some near misses. We went into the Thanksgiving one, and at the time, I might have mentioned it already when we were on last time, but Nico Ali Walsh is Muhammad Ali's grandson, and he wasn't like a seasoned amateur, but he had the right last name, and he was getting pushed on like ESPN and stuff, and
You're like, I want to fight this guy.
yeah, right. And my promoter was like, hey, like, I think I was 3-1. He's like, you get to 4-1, like, win this next fight over this guy. And I mean, obviously they looked at me as like a safe fight for this kid.
Sure.
He's an older guy.
And you're like, hey, this is
And
another
I'm like,
opportunity for me
dude,
to notch up.
You're telling me that I can fight at Madison Square Garden.
Dude.
You know what I mean?
Right?
Like, just
I hear you,
yeah,
bro.
5 or 6 years ago, if you told me I was even gonna fight again, period, I'd be like, yeah, you're
What a
fucking
journey,
crazy,
bro.
you know?
What a journey. And here you are staring down.
Right, yeah, that opportunity.
Right.
And then again, that was the night, my eye ended up swollen shut, caught an elbow. I dropped the guy in the last round to win a decision, but like that opportunity was like 5 weeks away, and they're like, you're not going to get medically cleared for it, and it was just, I had that window, and something like that cool never circled back around.
But still, the opportunity was still there.
Yeah,
dude.
right. It's like one of those, just slip through.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I continued fighting, with out of the PAL with Libby. And then it was every few months.
Yeah.
And then I want to get the date right. A couple years back, I had a fight, and then soon after that, we lost my stepbrother to suicide after a couple tours overseas. And honestly, another thing that brought our family so much closer together, but it kind of put boxing on hiatus. That was like the longest layoff. I think it was like a year, because that happened, and we was gearing up for something in the summer.
Yeah.
It was actually going to rematch that kid
that
I fought in my very first fight,
Yeah.
and like we had been cool, like remained in touch a little bit. And we were like, hey, it'd be fucking cool to do that one again.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Full circle, right?
Yeah. But, everything kind of gets put into perspective with something like that. And I just wanted to be there.
Yeah, when you're presented with your mortality like that.
Yeah.
It's, a lot of things
And
change.
my brother Billy was like, we were best friends through,
How old?
He was 37, but we played, hockey and baseball together since we were 4 or 5. Like that was the one person whose house I'd sleep over. He'd sleep over my house.
Yeah.
So like we were best friends for 15 years before we were actually legally brothers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that moment, like again, like and everybody understood. Like everyone's like, I was like, oh, I'm going to take a week and come back. He's like, dude, don't rush back.
You gotta.
You know what I'm saying?
digest
Whatever you
this.
need.
Yeah, you gotta digest.
Call
this.
me. you know. But and then there was people like you'd imagine, you know, like hitting my wife up like, oh, think Kyle's gonna relapse? Like this is pretty heavy stuff, you know. And like
Of course it did.
right, and again, I'm not saying it doesn't even necessarily come from a place of like gossip, just concern, you know. I mean, that was my track record for like, you know, a good stretch.
Sure.
But like, it never crossed my mind. Like, I think, and it's because of like we talked about, like that process of going through, being able to find gratitude in the most fucked up situations. Because like to me, it's like, all right, like my parents are at the hospital right now. I'm leaving. I'm coming back in the morning, and like, I can stop at Dunkin' and pick up donuts and coffee, but not have to like potentially be sidetracked for 45 minutes if this guy doesn't pick the phone up fast enough, or scrape for change to even get the donuts, you know, like,
man.
For me, like, I don't know how to explain, but like the gratitude, finding gratitude in that outweighed any idea of like, man, I want to mask this.
Absolutely.
I want to.
Dude, it's awareness, bro.
Yeah.
Because all of that, dude, Kyle, this has been happening for your whole life, dude. You have been surrounded by love and compassion your whole life, but you haven't been aware to it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that moment happens and you're looking around going, wow, look at all this support. Like, I can't believe this. You know what I mean?
And honestly, like all these people in my life who were unimaginably hurting,
dude, they never
are
gave
the
up
ones
on you,
that
bro.
carried me, you know. And like at some point, it's like, dude, like you got to try to pay this back, even if it's in the smallest ways.
Absolutely,
you know.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you know, that was fucking brutal. You know that. But again, like it.
So do you find yourself drawn back to boxing? Like, so you have this tragedy in your life, and you're like, wow, this is massive. This is huge.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself, well, I'm not gonna do this again. But I'm gonna go to.
Yeah, for sure. So, like that was like May, April. I think it was April, and it might have been May. I think I fought in May, and then it happened in April. And that, you know, obviously there was a lot of family stuff.
Sure.
And then, but I never just stopped going. You know, I'd sneak in for a day or two. You know, keep in touch with everybody, and you know, Libby's son Kenny brought him to the wake, and my other, you know, like all these people were just proved that they were there for me. You know what I mean? And I think it was the following. I think it was actually a year and a half. So that happened. It was like April. The whole year went. I stayed in the gym training. And then I think I did one in November. The longer time goes by, it's tough to squeeze dates. But it was a little over a year layoff. Yeah. And then they approached about bringing a professional show to Fall River at our gym at the PAL. Like I kind of linked up.
Like, holy shit,
Libby and Pete.
Like, I want in on this.
Yeah, right. Well, of course. Well, yeah, he was like, dude, like, if you're not going to do it, like, and it's not because I'm some talented athlete. It's because, like you said, like, I have so many friends and family that support me that business-wise, he knew if I put Kyle in a fight in Fall River,
that people are going to show up. People are going to show up.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's not because random boxing fans want to come see this superstar. It's because he's got people behind him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
dude, how many people show up to see if you even make it? Right.
Right.
How many people? Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. So it was very similar to how that CYO show felt at Adams. You know.
Sure.
So that was, he brought that show in September, I think it was, not this last September. You know, the September before, and dude, like. I was amazed. Like, so like 200 tickets. I got to it was the first professional boxing show in Fall River since in 32 years, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Like, last Ray Oliveira headlined the last one.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was, I mean, I fought in the main event. I won. It was, you know, like, I wore my brother's
storybook, right?
Yeah,
like you wrote this shit out, dude.
Like for my wife, she's like,
this is the moment.
The end of the story.
This is the end of the movie. That's the movie. We wrote the movie.
Right. Like, I wore I reached out, and the athletic director and a buddy of mine, Billy, who grew up with my brother Billy, who teaches, who's a guidance counselor at Durfee now, got me my brother's Durfee hockey jersey that like I wore out to the ring. You know what I mean? Like my dad and my stepmom, like my wife has been at all the fights watching through her eyes. But like my parents, even when in amateurs, they supported me, but they never went. Like it was the first.
It's hard, dude, to watch a kid take a beating, right?
Oh, my dad was a mess.
Right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, but they went, so like all my friends and family were there, and yeah, it was, as far as like athletic or just life, like that night ranks up there as
sure, man,
as one of the best, but I didn't go into it with the mindset that like this is the last one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I probably should have. I think that was my 8th fight, so I just wasn't going into it with that mindset. It would have been the perfect like fairy tale riding off into the sunset, right? So that was in September. And then I think the one after that it was this past Thanksgiving Eve. So again, and it was another little bit of a layoff from boxing, but I was in the gym, and at this point I'm helping Al second in the corner, with some of our young guys, so I'm connected, but my job also has me on the road quite a bit.
Sure.
So it's like it started being like I gotta find the perfect date that he has a show where I like out of at least like 10 of those weeks I'm home for like 8 of them, at minimum 7.
Yeah.
Because I'm old. Like Libby holds me accountable. Yeah, like I can't spend half the camp on the road, like running on a treadmill. Yeah. And like some of these places I've been lucked out to find like some cool boxing gyms I can go to. Yeah. But I need to be home if I'm going to give this an honest effort.
Right.
So that kind of stymied just being as active, just because I couldn't find. It's tough to all that shit to line up, right? And boxing does not pay a single bill.
Right.
My job does.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
But we took one Thanksgiving Eve, this past Thanksgiving Eve, and it was, I wanted to do just again, like, can I do it? These had been 4-round fights.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a scheduled 6-rounder.
Yeah.
So Thanksgiving Eve, this was in Andover, Mass. And again, dude, like not the numbers I do here, but like I got 50, 60 people willing on Thanksgiving Eve, which is a Wednesday, in the middle of the week, on the worst fucking travel day.
Yep. To show up.
Dude, like not only show up, but like when they buy tickets for me, I'm like, listen, dude, it's in Andover and it starts at 7 on the dot. I can't promise you when I'll be out there, but like basically like you might want to take a half day off from work to hand me this money for the pleasure of come watching me fight. You know what I mean? Like that's a tough sell, but but people came.
Absolutely. I could see why, bro.
Oh, I mean,
seriously,
I don't.
There's more heart in you, bro, than I think I've ever seen in any one given person.
No,
I'm telling you, bro.
There's plenty out there. It's just like
Come on,
you give
man.
me a platform to just talk about it with you, But yeah, Thanksgiving Eve, and I was all ready to go 6. I just wanted to see if my, my knee had been giving me trouble.
Yeah.
The orthopedic guy thought I tore my meniscus, and he just then after the MRI, he's like, I wish it was that, like a tear. Could scope
we
it.
can fix a tear,
You could
right?
scope it and you'll be good in a month. He's you played hockey, football, you boxed. You just
dude, you've asked a lot.
Yeah, like he's like, it's supposed to be smooth cartilage that your patella sits on, and it's like lobster roll meat. So it's going to be uneasy and painful, and ain't really shit you can do about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I started wearing like the knee sleeve for the last 3 fights or so, and it helps. But I wanted to see, like, with this, can I do a camp preparing for 50% longer of a fight, right? Going from 4 to 6 rounds, it's 2 extra rounds.
Yep.
And then, luckily, the guy I fought was the first guy I ever fought shorter than me, but he had like 60 fights. So I was like, oh, all right, like this he's done a lot of rounds.
He's durable. He can go the distance.
Yeah,
right?
Like he'll be durable.
Yeah.
And a round and a half in, he
oh, wow.
tapped out, and but again, there's still that part of me that's like, hey, yeah, great, like I scored the distance. I scored a knockout, but like in the back of my head, I'm like, these people drove this whole way for 5 minutes of a fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't really prove to myself.
So that's how we all felt for every Tyson fight, bro.
Yeah,
just for
right.
the record.
Yeah,
Like,
I remember being a kid and watching like WWF, and all the parents were watching and they'd all come back and be like, "Aren't you guys watching the fight?"
It's over.
Like, it's over. I'm like, you just walked in there 30 seconds ago. It's crazy. People still ordered because you wanted to see it,
dude. You just
know what I
wanted
mean?
to see it. Yeah, you wanted to see it,
and it wasn't like you could just watch it on social media 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Thanksgiving, Eve was successful.
Yeah.
And then Peter had thrown out the idea of maybe coming back. And at some point throughout these, I think it was like 4.5 years, is basically the whole pro career. But at some point during it, when after every fight, my poor wife's like, "This the last one? This the last one?"
Bro, can I say, you're on a track. I just want to say something. You said something. It was very profound to me when I heard it. It was this week. It was on your Facebook page. And you said, boxing's the only sport that takes a little bit of you every time you leave the ring. Like a little bit of you. Like, and I never, dude, it's so profound. Like, wow, I never even thought of that, dude. But it's true. Like, you leave weak. Every time you walk out of that ring,
you
dude,
leave a piece of you.
You leave a piece of you in there, bro.
I mean, unless you were Mike Tyson, like you just said, during that stretch where he was literally coming out and putting a guy down in 10 seconds and not taking any damage. But outside of that, and especially me, like, Libby has tried so hard to, like, it's hit, don't get hit. It's not your turn, his turn. He doesn't get a turn.
But even Tyson, dude, I think in his later years, he couldn't go the distance.
Of course,
like, he was good 1, 2, 3 rounds, but that fourth round, dude, he's winded, he's tired.
Right.
There's nothing you could do about that, bro.
Eventually, your chin starts to check out.
Right.
You know what I mean? That everything does,
Yeah.
And even when you come out of those, like everyone loves Mickey Ward, and Ward, you know how much he left in that ring every time,
man.
even when he got his hand raised at the end. Like, those guys aren't the same when you come out. You might not see it for 30 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But
right,
now when they're diagnosing every other hockey player and football player with CTE when they examine their brains after,
absolutely,
like it's and that was really the biggest thing too. I think. With my family is like, oh, we love you doing something positive. You're staying in shape, but you're also, like,
are we going to be
know.
spoon
Like,
feeding you?
I've been fortunate up until I'd never been knocked out. I still never been like knocked out unconscious. I'd never been stopped. So, I'd been dropped before and got back up, but I didn't have, some of these guys got 30, 40 fights and, they've had like, half a dozen serious
knockouts,
like unconscious. And then, like that. And when I played hockey as a kid, it was like you got your bell rung, you came back. We didn't know.
No, there was no CTE, dude.
You threw up. It's like, all right, did you take a sip of this water and get back out there? Right. And you were just, on deer legs for the rest of the game.
Right.
But at some point throughout this, I had told her, I was like, it'd be like that opportunity at Madison Square Garden ain't going to circle back, but I'd like to get
something
10 fights.
Yeah.
I'd say I got 10. And I promise you I'll stop by the time I'm 40. So like I knew, right, after so everything, that's the one fucking promise she deserves kept to her.
Yep.
There's other ones too, but like that's an easy one to keep if I'm not being selfish.
Sure.
So when the idea to circle back to Fall River, I was like, I should have done it last time.
So this is with Aaron.
This is the one
with Fall River
3
Fight
weeks
Night.
Yeah.
So Aaron says, "Hey, man."
Aaron, I always stay in touch with Aaron. He'd give me the heads up. Like, I think Peter is going to come back and might do something here.
Yes.
I
did hear something like that. So yeah.
And like selfishly, I wanted it
because I didn't know the person,
right?
But I knew the name. I had heard the name. Yeah.
And like selfishly, me and like I wanted it him to come back to the PAL again.
Yeah.
They're both like similar size venues. You're not going to pack 1,000 people in either of them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And like. How cool would it be where I started? Like, dude, our gym is on the top floor of the same building. To have the last one there, But business stuff. Whether it's PAL runs the bar and keeps it,
dude, you're still
and at that place,
you're still in the city, bro.
Yeah, right. And then that was my thing. I'm like, listen, you're not going to check every single box. You have the opportunity to hit that little 10 fight goal you had, and finish at home.
Dude,
literally what?
Packed house.
A half a mile down the street from the gym. It's what I'm
Packed.
saying? Yeah. So I kind of went into that one. And even my promoter, he's like, you're saying it's the last one, but I was working on this thing for the fall. And I'm like, and I could have done that, like, I'm like, yeah, I could do this. And then I could squeeze in 1 or 2 before I turn 40 in November. you know, but like, do I want my last one to be in Melrose or Andover or some random place that I'll probably get 50, 60 people to come to?
Yeah.
Or I can have 200-300 people that either bought, 200 who bought from me, another 100 that all know me that just happen to buy from my buddy Chris, who's fighting on the card too.
Right.
You know, and do it here, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, this is, you know, I had to convince him that this was it, you know? And I also knew, like, dude, I was never really fleet of foot or, you know, like, was slow to begin with.
So you had an idea? Did you have an idea?
And and as camp went on, I was like,
Did you know it was?
The knee had always, like I said,
knew.
I'd already got the MRI done.
Yeah.
He was basically like, nothing's torn. It's a mess. Deal with it. If you want to keep doing, or maybe here's a novel idea. Stop taking punches in the head for a part-time job.
Sure.
You know.
When did you feel it? So the bell rings. You're in You're in the ring. When do you start to feel it?
So going into it, and I mean, like, disclaimer: able-bodied Kyle 4 years ago could have been the same outcome.
Okay.
You know, like Steven's a great. My opponent, Steve Crow, is a great dude.
Yep.
You know, and
dude,
we
fought a good fight.
We went into it knowing, like,
so
those are my options, right? So I'm going to retire in Fall River, and then it's like, what am I going to do? Like, we were at the Golden Gloves in Lowell for Al's brother Avant, who's like, be the best fighter came out of the city in a while. He's going to nationals right now for the Golden Gloves.
What's his name?
Avant Hazard, yeah.
Okay.
You'll hear the name.
Yeah, because I want to. I want to Google that.
Yeah, and I had like other coaches that I know, you know, Capiello's, Brockton. There's just other, you know, it's a community that you know everybody kind of knows. Like, hey man, like, it's a pretty tough fight you're taking for your last one. Like, you know, the last one's supposed to be the swan, just like a walkover. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. And I was like, listen though, like, dude, front row tickets are $100. Like, the cheapest ticket's $60. Like, Fall River ain't, a flourishing rich city.
Yeah, we're not New York. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, it's not
like,
a huge venue.
I can't look people in the eyes and like ask them to come support me for a guy. And that's kind of how I felt on Thanksgiving Eve. You know, I didn't know that going into it. Like, I felt confident I'd win if I performed my best, but the guy's got a ton of fights, you know, like he's went 8 rounds, 10 rounds. I figured 6 would be a breeze for him.
Sure.
I'm not some huge knockout
give him a show. Give him a show.
Yeah. And so I was like, I can't ask people to come out and do that for someone who's going to just come show up for a paycheck. Like, I knew it was risky going into it, even injury-free, which no one is. Everyone goes into it. You can't train how you need to train for a fight for 10, 12 weeks and go in there like fresh as a daisy.
Right.
You know, I mean, we were sparring 3 times, you know, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, you know, and those are like 6, 8 more rounds than you're fighting because you want to make sure, you know, bumps and bruises.
You're swinging the weighted bat, bro.
Yeah, right. In preparation for it. And then that last week, you kind of pull off a little bit, make weight, and you feel, you know, 4 or 5 light days feels like a month of rest compared to what you were doing the whole camp, you know? But it's just, I was like, I want a challenge, you know? This dude's younger. He's bigger. Like, I fought half my fights at middleweight, which is 160. Like, I should be fighting at like 147. It might be where I'd actually like be eye level with a guy, you know, always like the shorter, smaller guy. You know, on most of the cards, I'm the older guy too. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's guys who've done it much into much later age, but you know, at 39, it's a young dude's game. Like I'm sparring with kids,
course,
you know, 20,
and you know what? I'm an older gentleman. There's nothing you could do about it.
No,
you could tell your brain, but your body just doesn't respond. It just doesn't. It just doesn't.
Right. And, you know, throughout camp, you know, little injuries here and there, tweaked an Achilles, but the knee was always a constant. You know, I always wore sleeves. I wore sleeves on both because I felt like, now this knee's giving me trouble because it's overcompensating for this one. You know.
When did you feel it? The first round? Was it that first round?
No, when I went in there, like obviously, dude, your adrenaline's through.
The roof. I could see it, dude. Your form, everything looked great, bro. Everything
I felt
looked great.
Like the only thing that sucked was they were kind of like bringing us around and down up that back stairwell where it was cold. And you were there. A lot of those fights were over like that. And of course, John's fight, Gruber, who was here, is the fight before me, and he goes.
Congratulations, Chris. By the way, fucking crazy, Chris. What an amazing fight.
Oh yeah. He's an animal. Yeah. But of course, the fight before me goes all 6 rounds.
Yeah.
So we're like standing in a. Both of us, well, my opponent too, I'm sure was in the other corner.
Just kinda,
you know, cold wind. You know, after
cool
I just worked up a
cool it
sweat
off. Yep.
and felt like I was ready to run through a brick wall, but you know, you refocus, you get in there, and the first round and the second round, like I felt great. Like you know, I felt like they were close, competitive rounds.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was up 2-0 maybe. Depending, you know.
I thought so.
Yeah,
I thought so.
And then somewhere in the third, and I've watched it back a million times.
Yeah.
And like even watching it back, I had no idea how bad I looked.
Was it a tweak?
Yeah, like I
think
think
you could see it. I
like
noticed
I
it.
stepped
Like you
back,
almost noticed it. Yes.
and I think part of it, you know, and then I got an MRI Thursday to see if something is actually torn out, but it could totally just be the same
thing.
Shit.
Right.
But
right. And then you
as you get
jammed it.
get tired and you're exhausted, the legs are all, you know, like full-bodied 25-year-old. There's been rounds where I'm like, I don't know if I can get off the stool, and I trained like a savage for this, but it's just I always tell guys, you know, like, oh, I'm in shape, I'm doing this in the gym. I'm like, dude, when you walk out in front of that crowd, whatever your meter is, it's going to cut down 30% just because of the situation. You know what I'm saying? Just because of the environment.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I took a step back, and I don't know, it's never really like a sharp pain. It's just like unsteadiness. It feels like it's not there. Like, I don't know if it's there, and it's the foot you're planting on, right? The foot you're leaning on. So I just noticed it, and I was like, oh shit, like I can't move the way I want to move. And then I think, like I said,
So now you're thinking about this, right?
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
It's throwing you off,
and then
right
towards the end of that third round, I got caught. He caught me with a good punch.
Yeah.
And then that, you know, I'm already a little unsteady.
Yeah.
So I remember going back, and then I was like, fuck, like, you know, I'm almost on one leg here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's going to get any better, and I'm only this is 6 rounds.
Yep.
Like, you know, I remember sitting in the corner going into the 4th round, and I think at that point it was obvious to everybody.
What's the conversation? Like, so you're in the corner, right? What's the conversation?
Yeah.
What are you hearing? What are they telling you?
So when I first sit down, like I said, by that point, like my wife was saying, dude, like halfway through that round, people were texting me like, "Fuck, it's his knee again." Like people, like I didn't realize how obvious it was that I was. Dude, like watching it back, I was stumbling into the rope sometimes without even getting hit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But to me, you know,
well, your adrenaline's pumping, dude.
Yeah,
you're
it's
in
just
zone.
tunnel vision.
Yeah, right.
That's that's one of the things I love about it is like there's
no sound, right?
Yeah, like that. Yeah. It's like that singularity of purpose. There's nothing else that's going on but that. Like, you know, and I haven't found another thing other than like running into a burning building where nothing else matters.
Running towards the noise, bro.
Yeah. So when I initially sit down, I saw the doctor come over, and that's when I kind of realized like, shit, it's obvious, you know? And I just remember being like, get out of here, I'm fine. And the doctor went, and then when like I watched it back on the thing, like the commentator's like, oh, I think because if a doctor's going to check on someone, they give you like the full minute break. Yeah. They don't eat into that. Like the break happens, they get up like the round's going to start, and then they pause and have the doctor come in.
Yeah.
So they were waiting for that, and the ref let us go. They're like, oh, I guess they're not going to have the doctor look at him. Yeah. And then that entire last round, I was, you know,
you could,
I was,
you could see it.
You know,
you could see it.
Kind of just where can I step where I'm going to be sure-footed.
Something's like at least.
And then there's a few times in that round I'm just like, fuck it, and come forward and throw some punches, and you know, some land, but nothing of huge consequence. Yeah. And then at one, you know, again, it wasn't until I watched it back, you know, at one point I'm stumbling to the right, and when he puts me down, like my hands are in my pockets already. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like went down, and in my mind, like I remember just going down, getting on my knee, and looking at the ref as he's counting and being like, I'm gonna get up at 7. Like, you know, because we've talked about it
give yourself a minute.
Like, because what guys do is they get dropped, and then they rush to their feet, and they're stumbling around.
Yes.
And then the ref's like, this is over.
Right. Give yourself a minute.
So I looked.
Get your bearings. Yeah.
I was Johnny Callis was the ref. Awesome ref. He's refed like a dozen world title fights. Like, you know, up
legit.
there. Yeah. And he's reffing my fight in Fall River. You know, it was cool,
man.
When I saw him there, I was like, I really hope you get my fight, because he had never reffed one of my fights before, and it turned out he did.
That's pretty cool. Man.
So in my mind, I just got to my knee. Like I watch it back, and I'm basically breakdancing on my knee. I was like, oh, this is brutal to look at, you know. But I get up. And
Dude,
then
there was so much heart, bro. You could see it, dude. I'm telling you, you could see it, man.
I stumble back. Into
I know
the
you
ropes.
don't see it, but I'm telling
Right.
you, somebody was watching, bro. Like
Yeah.
the amount of heart you had. Like I'm like, get up, man.
I know.
Fucking get up. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I walked toward, I stumbled towards him, and I knew most refs, 90% of the time, it's not just like, "Are you good? Continue."
Yeah.
They'll usually say, "Walk to your right" or "Walk to your left." You know. And of course, he was like, "Walk to your right." And I almost like looked at him like, do I have to? Can we just go? You know, because like so I did like this little side shuffle over, like because I didn't trust taking a step on it. And a lot of it, I owe the ref too, because, 90% of other fights I see where a guy looks like how I looked,
They probably would have called
they're
it.
waving it off,
Yeah,
right?
they probably would have called
But it's everything's
Dude, it's hard, Kyle. Dude, to see all that.
Well, yeah, and people
man.
are all, good or bad, people are always affected by their environment. Like,
Sure.
he knows that this is my last fight. He knows that all these people are here to see me.
Yep.
He knows Libby from the years.
Yep.
And he's like, I'll give this kid a shot.
Yep.
He gave me a longer leash than I
Sure,
think he
man.
would have given most guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So once he says, go ahead, I go to actually take a step, and I'm stumbling to the ropes to the point where my opponent almost looks at the ref like, this is still going on, and then, threw a few more. He landed some big ones.
Yeah.
And then, like, I went to come forward, and he stepped in, and he's like, that's it.
Yeah.
And, just the immediate reaction is like, what are you talking? We're in the middle of an exchange. I'm coming forward. Watching it back, I just ate like 3 uppercuts and a hook.
Yep.
I'm standing there, and I'm coming forward, but it's
Right.
the writing's
At
on
what
the
cost?
wall.
Yeah, at what cost?
Right.
Yeah.
And we waved it off. I contested a little bit, and it sucked in that, it's like, fuck, man, like, this is it. I didn't want to take like a walkover, and, but it's not.
Dude, you didn't let anybody down, dude. It was
No,
quite the show,
yeah.
brother.
And
that was quite the show,
it's
my man.
Like,
it was absolutely.
It's not a movie, and, like, you don't get it all back. Like, same thing with, like, dude. I feel like,
but your story's not written, brother. That wasn't
Right,
the end.
right.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? That's
yeah,
why.
yeah, no,
that's
no,
why
no.
that didn't end that way, dude.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because your story's still being written, brother. You know what I mean?
and I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, like, it was a good, tough fight. Like,
Sure.
I feel like my record's honest, and
Yeah.
the last Fall River one would have been the perfect one. But hey, like, everybody hung around, everybody came and checked on me. I mean, I was fine afterwards.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Other than hobbling around, in the moment, I felt like I looked like I wasn't gracious, because at some point people started cheering and chanting Cusick, and in that moment, you just want to get the fuck out of there. Like, dude, this guy, like, even my opponent, super nice guy, came over, had a conversation, hugged me, and then asked me to take a picture. And, like, in that moment, it's like, fuck, man, you're the nicest guy in the world, but I don't want you to hug me. We both had one goal, and you fucking took it, because the only way for you to get it was to take it. Like, that's how it always is.
Exactly.
But,
Exactly.
You're
has
a
to win, somebody
sportsman
has to
about
lose,
it,
bro.
and but I felt like, when everyone's chanting, I'm like, no, like, fucking stop. Like, I just want to get out of here. But it is, to think back, like you said, to 5-6 years removed to where I was, and
brother.
it was a pretty cool, bittersweet moment, even though, like, I didn't get to write
Not just
the
for you,
exact
bro.
ending.
For everybody that cares about you, and
Right.
everybody watched you along this journey. To see you in that ring, bro,
Yeah.
that was a win for everybody.
And
dude.
it honestly, like, the way it went, and, like, people have said it, like, dude, if you stopped him, or you gutted that out and won, in your back of your head, you'd be like, but I got one more.
I got one more.
Right. So, like,
It never ends, bro.
Right. No.
It never
So,
ends.
like, 2 things. One, knowing that, like, all right, like, my body just can't hold up.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, to compete at the level I want to. Like you said before, like, I see it, I can't do it. It's a time to reflect on if
Sure.
it's time.
Sure.
And then just, my wife, like I said, my parents were there again. Like, my dad ran over to the steps as I was coming down. And I'm like, I'm fine. He's like, you're stumbling. Like, I could see it getting to him. Like, so in my mind, it's like, dude, I put them through so much with my own, trials and tribulation.
Yep.
And it's just like, I look at it as like, am I really going to be selfish and keep pushing this, going in there, compromised, and expose them to having to watch, like,
Sure.
Their son, their brother, their husband, like, ended on my feet. You know, like
Yeah.
there could be one. You know, could I be out there
Right.
unconscious?
Right.
And
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's
Right.
the pros, as bad as like the competitor in me, and there's part of me that's nervous. Like, damn, man, like what now? You know, like I'm not gonna have that. Like it feels weird. Like there's not a next camp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
like,
let me ask you this: what is next for Kyle?
Yeah.
What's the next 5 years look like for Kyle? Taking it easy,
I
gonna
don't know what the next 5 months looks
right,
like.
right.
But no, like I've been in the, like so right after that fight was Saturday, like we were talking about before. I had a work trip to California on Monday, so I was on the plane with sunglasses and a black eye a couple days later.
Yeah.
But then then I was back, and I was in the gym a couple days last week.
Yeah.
And
Dude, can I tell you something?
yeah.
Like you were talking about your job earlier, and I could see excitement when you were talking about it. Like it's one thing we talk about our jobs, but
Yeah.
I see that you're genuinely excited about what you do now.
No, I mean, it's not. I wish I made a little more. It's not like
Yeah, but dude, money's a byproduct. Like, I say that
Right,
all the time,
right,
dude.
right.
If you're happy, you feel like you're making a difference,
Yeah.
brother. That's half.
yeah.
of
No,
it,
I
you know what
enjoy
mean?
it. I think it comes with, being there for some time and
Yeah.
feeling confident in
Yeah.
what I do and
Yeah,
knowing
yeah.
I'm good at it.
Yeah.
And
Do you
and,
still want
you're
to
helping
do something
people.
with boxing? Do you still want to be
Yo,
involved?
absolutely.
Training
That's
and-
what I was gonna say. Like towards the last, year and a half or two, I've been, helping Al second in the corners for our young guys. His brother Avant
Yeah.
and Mikey Alves, another young kid from Somerset, great fighter out of our gym. Him and Avant are like, the same age.
Yeah.
They both won the Southern New England gloves down here,
Sure.
competed in Lowell. So I think I've been able to, excuse me, realize that I can feed that competitive need
Yeah.
a little bit with them.
Coaching,
Yeah,
training.
yeah, and there's like the hardest working kids. They're super appreciative of the time that we put in with them. Like they're the ones doing it. Like some of the appreciation I feel like isn't even warranted. Like, dude, I'm just showing up. Like
Giving
Libby
back, dude, right?
and
What
Mike
they
Perry
gave to
and the
me, I
guys
want to
gave
give back,
me.
right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, and you guys
Pay it
have the
forward.
potential to do light years more than I did
Yeah.
in the sport. I'm just happy to be a part of it, and again, pay that forward.
Yep.
So that's, I think I'm telling myself that'll be enough, because you're still on the outside.
Promoting? Do you think maybe promoting? Finding, like, if you found the right fighter, would you be like, hey, I want to...
I don't know.
What's involved in that, dude? Is that... I mean, that's probably the next episode, but like,
Yeah,
even with Aaron, I'm very interested in that whole promoting, how that all works, dude. You know what I mean?
I probably only know a fraction of it. You
No
know what
shit.
I mean? Like, I was pretty involved, like the first Fall River show at PAL,
Yeah.
and this one a little bit more so, Aaron, with like seeing that side of it, where like ticket sales, like especially when like you're the guy there, like who's main eventing it and expecting to bring in 50% of the crowd, and the rest of the guys will bring
Right.
the rest.
Yeah.
But
Just
then
that pressure.
right,
Just that
right.
pressure.
And then just with it being at the PAL that first time, like I was running to get keys from Libby to let Pete and Nick in so they could see how they wanted to set the chairs up, or meet with the fire department. You know what I mean? I got a small taste of it, and it sucks because where I was at that point, because I'm also training to fight on this card and all this other shit you got to worry about.
Yeah, you're right.
But
right,
even
right.
now, like, I'm done fighting, but I'm not, I promised. But being done, I don't know. There's so much.
So there's a
It's
chance.
boxing's
So
a wild
there's
game.
a chance. There's a chance.
Yeah, it's just I think for me, like through all this, like learning.
So your wife
what
shuts
I
off the
find-
podcast.
yeah.
Shuts it up. Shut.
What I find like most fulfilling, like I don't know if that would feed it for me, like promoting, a fighter or shows. Like I like.
The
Like I
down
find
dirty
it
of training.
fulfill. Yeah, like I find it fulfilling, like being there for this guy.
Yeah.
And when he's got a shitty sparring session, it's second guessing himself, being like, dude, like I might lose. I'll lose 70% of my sparring sessions as long as I win that one night. Like that's what you're building towards.
Sure. Right.
You're not. You're getting in there to work on things and to train with guys tougher than the guy you're going to fight, ideally. So when you get in there, it's a cakewalk,
Sure.
or something close
Sure.
to it. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Sure. Sure.
I find that part of it more gratifying.
Amazing.
Than,
Dude, what an amazing story, brother. Amazing.
No.
Listen,
I
real
feel
quick,
like I
before we
Yeah.
walk out of here, if people wanted to support the PAL, what's the best way that people could support that organization and help? Like, what is it? Money? Is it exposure? Like, is it donations? Like you say, like $50 a month. Like I'm saying to myself, dude, I want to sponsor like 10 kids. Like, how do I do that?
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
Like, is that what it is? Is it buying sponsorships for these kids to be able to go in there? Like, how do we support this?
Yeah, dude, that's a great question, and one I wish I brought an answer for.
Well,
Like,
I tell you what,
I don't even know.
How about this? How about you promise me you'll come back on the show?
Yeah, 100%.
And you'll have an answer to that question. Because
Yeah.
I think it's an organization that's doing amazing things, brother. And just what it's done for you. You know
Oh,
what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
100%.
I
And
sit here across
I'm
from
one
you.
of people with probably way more hardcore stories than I have that have found,
Yeah, but everybody-
solace
dude,
and redemption
everybody's
in that
journey
place.
is our own, brother,
So
right?
I'm not like I'm not a one-off. You know what I'm saying? There's hundreds of kids that Libby's been that guy for, where he's kept the gym open late or drove the kid.
Dude, how many
drove
lives-
the kid to Lake Placid?
How many lives has he saved?
Uh,
Right?
you're
Seriously.
right. Yeah. No.
Right?
No.
When you think about it?
Yeah.
So, dude, I want to be a part of that. I want to, whatever I can do, whatever the Bobby Couto show can do to support
yeah.
that. And,
No, it's-
and Studio B.
appreciate it.
And so, like, well, again, we'll talk.
Yeah,
and
yeah, 100%.
We'll come full circle with that. I'm hoping that you'll come back on the show, brother. Like,
Yeah.
Kyle, I got to be honest with you, bro. I've done many interviews on this show. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people, brother, but not many have touched me the way that your journey has touched me, dude. And that's what this show is all about, dude. It's the absolute. It's about the journey. It's about the success and the struggle, right? I always feel like the harder the struggle, the greater the success, dude. You know, the sweeter the fruit when you get there. And dude, you're the example of that. And I just want to say thank you so very much for coming in today, dude. Taking the time, dude. You worked all day. You drove, not
sat in front
good.
of a computer.
Good. It doesn't matter. You worked all day, brother. You made it here, and you took the time to sit in this and have this amazing interview with me. And I just want to say thank you, brother, for being here. And Kyle, I hope I can call you friend, bro.
Yeah, 100%,
Look, bro,
man.
thank
No,
you so
yeah.
very much,
No.
dude. I appreciate
I
you.
appreciate
Yeah.
the platform, man. It was awesome. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, and I promise you I will come back with an answer.
All right,
with
dude.
how
We're
we
going to
can,
do that. We're going to do that. So,
help-
dude, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, if they in training, are you offering anything like that? Or
No, I mean, we're at the PAL.
Yeah.
If those hours don't work, my buddy Mike Bryan on Shove Street's doing great things with Loves Boxing.
Yeah.
With more of a traditional hour set and some classes and
And
stuff.
where they
over.
where is he?
They're on Shove Street down the south end
In
of the
Florida,
city.
okay, yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, I'm at the PAL. All the guys are there. Libby's still running.
Yeah.
Alda Cruz.
How do they find you on Facebook, Instagram?
Facebook's just Kyle Cusick, and
Yep.
Instagram.
And they can find you through me if anybody wants to get in touch with
Instagram's
you.
K Cusick 10.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll hit you up.
Yeah.
I'm around, man.
Awesome, bro.
Been here my whole life.
Kyle,
Not
thank you
going
so much,
anywhere.
brother. I appreciate you, bro.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here. All right,
Appreciate
everybody. I really appreciate you joining the show today. Episode 82 of the Bobby Couto Show. Please go like and follow the show on Apple, Spotify. It's the only way the show gets traction, and spread the word. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being part of the show. And remember, everybody, all roads lead here.